An entitled jerk kept spoiling a show I was trying to watch for the first time, as he literally came into our store and told me all about what happened in the final season, literally for over 2 months. So I decided to get my own petty revenge by giving him a taste of his own medicine in a way he will never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so I used to work in a comic shop, and we had a lot of regulars who would come in every week who I got to know fairly well. Now, there was one guy who had mentioned he liked Stargate. So one week he came in, and I mentioned to him that I had started rewatching Stargate from the very beginning. I also mentioned that I'd never seen the last 3 seasons or any of the spin-offs, so I was excited to see them. Well, the first thing he says is, "Oh, you don't know about the thing that happens then, do you?" And he then goes into a detailed description of something that happens in the final season. And when he said this, I was like, whoa, hold on, no spoilers, man. Which should have been enough, but of course it absolutely wasn't. Every week he'd come back in and spoil it for me even more. And every week I would tell him to please just not spoil it for me. This went on for about 2 months. Between the regularity of it and the smirk he'd get on his face, every time I asked him to not tell me spoilers, I knew he was doing it on purpose. And at this point, I decided that I was gonna get my petty revenge. One week he came in and bought a big pile of comics that he had ordered. I waited for him to pay, and then instead of bagging them, I fanned them out all on the counter. You see, I read a lot of comics, especially back in the day. I read every new comic that was published by Marvel and DC, and then some, especially as they came out. So it just so happened that I had read every single comic he had just purchased. And this is where my revenge comes into play, and I'm sure you could see where this is going. I then proceeded to point to each comic and spoil every single one of them. Well, after that, he didn't talk to me about Stargate ever again, because he finally got a taste of his own medicine. Oh man, this guy's a giant jerk. Like seriously, don't spoil a show for somebody. And the fact that he was doing it over and over again in such a targeted way is so inappropriate. Like, you know for a fact he found like some sick joy out of that, which is so weird in my opinion. Like, dude, leave people alone and let them enjoy whatever they want to enjoy. Don't go around spoiling crap for people and being like, oh yeah, you don't know about the details in the final season. And sure, an accidental spoiler is like one thing, but for him to tell you over and over again and just completely ignore anything that you're saying, like that is super toxic and deserve to be shut down. So good for you for showing him exactly how obnoxious that really is, because what he was doing was incredibly annoying. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not sending my mom money to put food in the house, despite the fact that she spends all of her money by going to the casino? Here's what's happening. For some background knowledge, I got my first job when I was 16 years old. Ever since I started working and bringing in my own income, my mom has been leeching off of me for money, and I'm basically a second source of income. Every time I get paid, she pocket watches me or starts immediately asking for money at any chance she gets. Now, my mom has a full-time job working 40 hours a week, and she makes significantly more money than I do. The problem is that her priorities are never focused on what's important when she gets paid. She either goes out and buys cigarettes, or she goes to the casino and gambles all, if not most of her money away. It is very frustrating, especially because she knows we need to eat and that we're barely able to get by as it is. And yet, she still goes to the casino. I'm now 18 years old and the situation still applies. So today she asked me to send her about $35 so she can do a Walmart order and put food in the house. She had a little money for it, but she just needed me to cover the rest. And I told her that I couldn't send it. I've been working 2 jobs, so I've had a little extra money for myself lately, but I've gotten so sick and tired of her asking for money and being the second source of income to the point where whenever she asks for money, I tell her no. She then told me that it was okay and that she'd figure something out. A few hours later, she was more or less like, wait, so you got paid $800 yesterday, but you can't send me money to feed your family? It was something along those lines. Also, mind you, in the text message itself, she said to me, and you most certainly don't have to. So I'm just thinking, okay, well then why are you texting me? So honestly, I just want to know if I'm in the wrong for not wanting to send it to her. I feel like if she got her crap together and prioritized her money better, then she wouldn't need to be asking me or anyone else she knows for money. So am I the jerk here? Because right now I'm incredibly pissed off. No, you're not the jerk. This is absolutely her problem. Instead of being the responsible adult in the room, she's gonna go to you instead and be like, oh, just give me $35. Don't you want to have food in the house? What's wrong with you? And it's like, yeah, I do, but guess what? That's your responsibility, not mine. And also, if you haven't done it already, I would never tell her how much you make ever again. She definitely doesn't need to know that, and it's honestly none of her business. So truly, you are absolutely not the jerk for turning her down because she is using you like an ATM, which in my opinion is incredibly unfair. My job is making me dread going into work so much that it's really affecting my self-worth and my self-esteem, making me regret taking this job in the first place. Here's what's going on. I'm currently working as a server at a retirement home, and it's my first job and I've only been there for a couple of months, but I'm starting to wonder if I should leave because I genuinely dread going into work every single day. I took on this job hoping it would make me stronger as a person and help me talk to people more, especially since I'm very introverted and I have a history of social anxiety. As the weeks go on, however, I just find myself dreading going into work more and more each day. It is so hard to keep up, even for the people who have worked there for years, and I frequently find myself breaking down whenever the stress gets too much for me. I feel so guilty whenever that happens because I try so hard to hold it together and just get through my shift, but I always end up breaking down because the work keeps piling up and the residents are very quick to get upset sometimes. The leads just tell me to go in the back whenever I cry, but I feel so bad that I'm putting my work onto other people and making the residents wait longer. My manager is super sweet, but I worry that I might be a burden on my coworkers and I'm just causing more stress for them in the long run by staying. I often find myself thinking that I'm worthless and that my coworkers are annoyed by me because of how easily I get stressed out. Some of them are super gossipy and toxic too, so I'm convinced that they speak poorly of me when I'm not around. I'm worried about how it would look on my resume if I only stay at this job for a few months. I want to show commitment, but I genuinely can't see myself staying here much longer. I'm starting to look for employment elsewhere so that I will be financially stable if I do decide to leave soon. I've heard from my coworkers that it gets better, but I hate knowing that I'm just being a burden. I want to be able to pull my own weight so badly and not break down whenever it gets hard, but I'm starting to think that maybe I'm not built for this job, especially if I get so overwhelmed like this to the point where I can't even do my job to the best of my ability. What should I do? Okay, honestly, I completely understand where you're coming from because holy crap, some jobs just really blow. They're not fun, they're overwhelming, you get treated like crap, etc. And I've definitely worked those kinds of jobs and it is not a good time ever. You wake up dreading to go to work, you're not looking forward to your day, you think to yourself that you would literally rather do anything else than go into work. Like, dude, I totally get where you're coming from. But for what it's worth, I can tell you right now that it really does get better. And I'm not talking about the job, but I'm talking about you in general. You slowly but surely become better at handling these kind of situations. When it comes to your resume and all that stuff, like, look, if you're looking for another job and you know the job you have currently is not a good fit, then just keep moving forward. Like, it's not that big of a deal. You say this is like your first job, and like, honestly, no one's gonna blame you if you don't want to stick around for that. I would personally say stay for like, I don't know, like 3 months or something like that, just to give it some time. But if you know for a fact this is not a good fit, then sure, find something else. That's totally understandable. In my opinion, it's better to find a job when you have a job, but like, things happen. And trust me, leaving a job you just started is not as unusual as you might think it is. People do this all the time, and it's not seriously that big of a deal, so I would definitely cut yourself some slack here. But either way, I hope this all works out. An entitled idiot at a desert party literally is looking for a fight, as he intentionally bumps into my shoulder, spilling beer all over my shirt. So I get some revenge by throwing my drink right at his back, soaking him to the bone in a way he will never forget. Here's how I did it. Years ago, my friends and I went to a party in the desert in Arizona. I wasn't much of a beer drinker, so I picked up a bottle of vodka, a big bottle of Sprite, and a big gulp cup. We get to the location in the area of the desert where a lot of parties are thrown on weekends. Tons of people from all over had shown up. I'm standing around with a couple of buddies, drinking from my big gulp cup, and sure enough, young men and alcohol has a great potential to breed idiots. A couple of guys started walking around acting tough and looking to start a fight with somebody, anybody. I assumed they were on the football team or something like that. Anyways, they're walking through the crowd, bumping into people hard, trying to start something. I had just refilled my cup and one of the guys was walking past me from behind and bumped me quite hard as he walked past. And as a result, I spilled some of my drink on my shirt. And I'm not gonna lie, they were already very irritating. But now he just pisses me off even more. So as he was walking by, I yell out, "Hey idiot," and I toss my whole drink at him, soaking the back of his shirt quite extensively at that. And quite a few people saw me do this as well. He then turns around pissed off and shouts out, "Who did that?" He then looks right at me and I pointed at my wet shirt and I say, "I don't know, man, but the jerk got me too." I then pointed in a different direction and I said, "He went that way." Well, this guy actually thanked me and went looking for his non-existent assailant. But after this, I simply refilled my cup while all the other witnesses laughed their butts off. Which honestly, this is the least amount of revenge I could enact on this guy, especially since he was obviously looking for a fight. Oh man, you handled this perfectly. First of all, it's really smart that you didn't try to like start a fight with this guy, but I love the way you misdirected him and basically said, "Oh yeah, I got hit too. He went that way, go look that way, drunk guy." Like seriously, that's fantastic in my opinion. So good for you for deflecting and basically avoiding getting in a fight, because that could have been really bad. My entitled mom yells at me no matter what. Despite the fact that I've done literally everything to try and appeal to her, she still yells at me and I'm honestly so sick of it. Here's what's going on. For the last 2 days, my mom has been in a constant mood, like agitation, yelling, and complaining for the last 48 hours. I have stayed calm the best I can, and I've tried to not break down or get frustrated with her. But no matter what I do or even don't do, she has yelled at me, especially today. Now, I have a cat, a little sweetheart who's gotten me through like the last 2.5 months, and my mom scared him yesterday and I told her that. But she got mad at me as if it was my fault. Today, he had an appointment as he's been a bit sick. The vet came in, talked a bit, then went out to do a few things for my little boy. Well, as soon as the vet went out, my mom immediately changed. She went from sweet with a vet to berating me, specifically bringing up what happened yesterday, saying that she's not going towards him because he's scared of her. And she said this in a very condescending tone. But here's the thing, he really is scared of her. He has flinched after seeing her, squirms around when she tries to give him his medicine, and refused to let her pick him up at the vet. Yet she still doesn't see he's terrified, and just continues to be mean and angry at him. No matter what I've said, she's still yelled at me today. I've asked her questions about something, I don't remember exactly what, but it was just a simple question. She then just immediately snapped at me. Like even just talking to her, she snaps at me. Now the vet for my cat said not to give him anything other than the food they prescribed and his medicine, but my mom wanted to go against them and give him a dry food that we got after a few days on his new medicine, despite them saying not to give him anything other than the given food and medicine for the next 2 to 4 weeks. I told her I won't be doing what she said, and her response was to say, "Oh right, because I forgot you know everything." And it's like, I'm just following the vet's orders. If I stay quiet, I get yelled at. If I follow along, I get yelled at. If I try to communicate, ask a question, or even speak, I literally get yelled at. No matter what I do, it always just gives me the same result. Well, she's now decided to blame her mood on Mercury going into retrograde, which is not a reason but an excuse to yell at me no matter what I do, and to try and make me leave it alone and just take it. She likes to say that me being on testosterone is not an excuse for my agitation, despite it changing my hormones and agitation being the main side effect. But she believes because I'm using that as an excuse, she can use astronomy as hers. But that's not the same as my hormones literally changing. But I guess I'm stuck wondering whatever this is until she decides to stop. You know, whenever that's gonna be. I wish I wasn't stuck. But with what she's basically done with my life, I am stuck until further notice. I might be 18 years old, but she is forcing me back to when I was 8. And honestly, I'm so sick of it. Yeah, that really sucks, man. I'm so sorry you have to deal with that. Your mom snaps at you no matter what, and she refuses to take like any responsibility. And her saying, "Oh yeah, Mercury's in retrograde." Like that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. That is not real, and you cannot convince me otherwise. Am I the jerk for feeling excluded from going on family vacations? As my family literally does not include me in any major events, all because I live across the country. Here's what's going on. So several times, my parents have taken my brother and his family on family vacations. I live across the country and I am single, but I have never been invited on these family vacations. To add to that, my brother recently had a courthouse wedding and I wasn't invited. I got into it with my mom today, where I told her, okay, maybe I can't go, but an invitation would be nice, and it would make me feel included in the family. Well, she said that I chose to be far away so they don't invite me, and said that I need to make more of an effort, to which she refused to elaborate on. I travel to see them at least once a year. Meanwhile, they never come to see me. I told her I understand my choice to be far away, but being included by invitation in family events would be a nice gesture. To purposefully exclude me because they think I can't make it honestly feels like I'm not part of the family. They don't know what I can and can't do. She also went on that my brother looks out for her by trying to keep her active. I know they've always favored my brother, and that's not the issue. The issue is that I feel hurt that they exclude me from family events because I live far away. So am I the jerk for bringing this up in the first place? Because right now I feel incredibly frustrated. No, you're not the jerk. This really is inconsiderate of them, and the fact that they're not willing to, like, I don't know, tell you that something's going on, like a marriage or a family vacation, like that to me shows that, yeah, they probably don't like you nearly as much as you want. And that really sucks. Like, that's not your fault at all. So honestly, I'm so sorry that you're dealing with this, but no, you are definitely not the jerk. And the fact that they're not willing to include you in stuff is incredibly toxic. Am I overreacting after my boyfriend gave his mother the dress I wanted for my birthday? Because right now I feel incredibly hurt and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 23-year-old female and I've been dating my boyfriend, who's a 26-year-old male, for about 3 years now. About 2 months ago, while we were out shopping, I saw this really gorgeous, amazing dress that was just perfect for me, and it was in my favorite color. He looked at the dress and said it was beautiful, but it was rather expensive, so we didn't end up getting it. For weeks after this, I would constantly talk about the dress to him and how I couldn't stop thinking about how beautiful it was, and hope that one day I could save up to buy it, since we've been budgeting a bit lately. He would hear about this dress from me all the time and talked about how great he thought it would look on me. So yesterday was my birthday, and we had a little get together with some members of both of our families to celebrate, except when his mom arrived to our house, she was wearing the exact same dress in the exact same color, and I was stunned. I thought that he must have told her about it and she went and got one, but it turns out that wasn't the case. In my surprise, I said, "Oh my gosh, there's no way. That's the same dress I was looking at and just loving for the past few months." She then replied by saying, "Oh really? He gave it to me as a gift last month. month. And when she said this, I was shocked and very confused. Even more so when my boyfriend gave me the birthday gift that he got me. It was literally a $50 gift card to Sephora. For the rest of the night, I sat quietly in a corner in silence and confusion. I felt hurt and was lost in my head as to what was going on. My boyfriend and everyone was blissfully unaware and happy the entire night, and I didn't want to ruin the mood, so I started to try and put on a good face. But I just can't shake this feeling of being hurt. A part of me feels like I'm overreacting and acting spoiled and entitled. So seriously, am I? I just need to know if I need to calm down and not be upset about this, because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, before I go any further and give my takes on this is some crazy stuff because we have an update from the original poster that literally blows all of this out the water. So here's what they had to say. I finally got the nerve to straight up ask him about everything, and his response was to say that he thought I had to be humbled a bit because I got way too overly excited about something as trivial as a dress. He thought it would be fun to see my reaction to all of it. His mom had no idea about any of this and just thought her son was giving her a gift. I'm now so upset and hurt that I just called my mom to come get me, and I will be staying with her for a few days while I figure out my next steps because I am absolutely not going back to him. Okay, dude, this is some toxic, crazy stuff. What boyfriend in their right mind who loves their girlfriend would be like, oh yeah, you need to be humbled. You're way too excited about this. I'm gonna buy this for my mom instead of you. Let's see how you feel about it. Like, dude, what is going on right now? That's crazy. And that's not some normal, like, loving behavior. That's some psychopathic, narcissistic stuff, dude. Like, seriously, what's your problem? You're a terrible person. So to the original poster, no, you're not crazy, and no, you're not overreacting by getting out of there. This guy does not care about you, and he's treating you like crap on purpose. And that, in my opinion, is a red flag that you absolutely cannot ignore. An entitled Karen refused to listen to us, and instead decided that she wanted to fight with us, regardless of what we were trying to say or any of the help we tried to give. Here's how it went down. To start things out, as a single-digit age kid, I spent my summers working for the family business, and one part of that was running the concession contract at a small local music venue. Popcorn, burgers, fried chicken, pre-made salads, and drinks were the bulk of what we had, but there was a small formal dining area of about 30 tables on a patio overlooking the wooden ravine. These tables were by reservation only, but on super slow nights without a reservation, walk-ins were allowed. For this restaurant area, we do not have a liquor license, so we couldn't serve wine with dinner. Sorry, getting a license for a seasonal, weather-dependent outdoor venue that was only open 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, just simply wasn't worth the hassle. And since we were just the concessionaries, it wasn't even our venue, so we couldn't get one on our own if we wanted to. Now, one of the most common types of shows would be a symphony orchestra or a well-known string ensemble. We had major concerts with B-list and former A-list stars sprinkled in, but those were outnumbered by the classy performances. And where you have classy performances, you have uptight snobs who can't eat a bite of food without wine. They also know that they absolutely deserve it, and nobody had better tell them no. Now, for most people, we would say we have no liquor license, so we don't serve or sell any wine. We also cannot tell people it's okay to bring their own wine. Again, listen carefully. We cannot tell people it's okay, as in we cannot give permission. There are liquor laws for a reason. Well, this is where the entitled couple of this story enters the scene. They're making reservations on the phone, and we had a steady trickle of people like this, and the conversation always went the same. The wife of the couple was on the phone and said, "What kinds of wines do you serve?" We responded back by saying, "I'm sorry, but we do not have a liquor license, so we don't serve any wine." This lady then says, "Well, what kind of restaurant doesn't have any wine? This is a very special occasion, and we can't enjoy it without wine. Can't you make an exception just this one time?" But we just apologized and said, "I'm sorry, we don't have a liquor license." This entitled Karen then says to us, "Well, can you just go get one? I mean, how hard can it be?" To which we literally didn't say anything and just stood there in silence. The entitled Karen then said, "Well, we'll just bring our own and then you can serve it." But as soon as we heard that, we said, "I'm sorry, but without a liquor license, we cannot serve wine, and the venue does not allow alcohol to be brought through the gate." Now, as a side note, we had nothing to do with the venue or the gate. Their policies were their policies. And while there was technically a rule against bringing in alcohol, people routinely brought in picnic meals and snacks to have on the grassy area. And while there was a rule against bringing in alcohol, they also did not check any of the bags or any of the coolers. I mean, for some of the big concerts, some of the family kids could get like $50 in aluminum a night after the show was over, with us racing through the venue ground screws to collect as many cans as possible. This couple then said, "So we can't even bring our own wine in?" But we responded by saying, "Look, I cannot give you permission, but they don't check the bags." Now, I need to add in that the owners told all of us to word it exactly like that. We weren't allowed to tell somebody they weren't allowed to bring the booze in, but since we were under the venue's policies and their official policy was to not check the bags, we could say that. Now, about half of the couple picked up on the dance, which then led to them asking rapid-fire questions. We basically explained again that we do not serve wine, and that's all that we're gonna say. Also, we do have some wine glasses they could borrow if they wanted to, and we also have a corkscrew that they could borrow too. Well, after getting through all this, the other half would scream, yell, and insult, and was even threatening and bullying and being cajoling and pleading with us. But if they would just shut up and listen and think for just a moment, they would be able to pick up what the others did. But they wanted to fight instead. They wanted to win more than they wanted to drink wine and just pretend to be grown-ups. They wanted to pretend to be classy for a night, but they clearly were not. People who don't listen when being told how to get things done, when permission can't be really given, need to stop and think for a moment, because this entitled Karen absolutely refused to do so, and that is nobody's problem except for hers. Dude, I can't stand people who literally try to act like they're more important than they really are, and the Karen in this story absolutely fits the bill.
I own 2 locations of a store. I usually work at one, so when I went to the other, an employee there didn't know that I was the owner. She tried to accuse me of stealing from my own store and told me that she was the owner. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. About 7 years ago, when I was about 19 years old, me and 3 of my friends opened up a cell phone store. We basically repair phones, sell third-party contracts, and sell accessories like screen protectors and cases. As the business grew, we wanted to expand, so about 4-ish years ago, we opened a second store on the other side of town. It was one company with 2 locations. I was the one pushing the opening of the new location, so it was basically my project, so I was at the new location more often than not. After 6 to 8 months of running the new location, business finally stabilized and was standing on its own 2 feet, so I wasn't at the new location 24/7. At one point, one of my partners who ran the older store went on a vacation, so we agreed I would work at the older location a few days a week. While he was gone, the other partner who wasn't on vacation would open up the store in the morning and stay there for a few hours with the employees, and I would arrive later in the day after opening up the other one. When I arrived, one of my partners was on the phone in the back talking to one of our wholesalers, so I left him to it and just decided to look around the store, as I haven't been there much over the last few years, and the time I did spend there was mostly 10-second visits for deliverers and such. Here's where the story starts to get good. As I'm looking around, this girl started to watch me. If I walk from one end of the store to the other end, she kind of follows me, pretending she is doing inventory or something. All I thought to myself was, okay, that's kind of weird. She was a new hire, so I never really met her before, but I assumed she recognized me or something, since there are some pictures of me and my partners hanging around the back. So maybe she was just nervous to meet the new boss. I was about to walk up to her and introduce myself when a customer came in looking like he needed help. I approached him and started talking to him, but before I could react, she stopped the conversation with the customer and helped him herself. After he left, she came up to me and said, "I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. You don't work here and you're making me very uncomfortable creeping around. Please get out of my store now." I thought, what the heck, and decided to tell her who I was to see exactly what she think is going on. I asked her what she meant and she said, "I saw you when you came in and I'm pretty sure you put something in your pockets." She went on to explain that she is the owner of this place and doesn't want any trouble. She just wants me to leave so there won't be any issues. She was saying all this around the time my partner got off the phone and overheard the end of it. I was holding back the biggest grin, and so was he. And then he approached us and explained that I was one of the owners and her boss. Her face turned red and her whole attitude changed instantly. This all happened about 2.5 years ago and we still joke about it. But now this 5'4" redhead girl who was about to call the cops on me for just looking around my own store is now my wife. Our first kid, who is due in about 3 months, is going to hear this story for the rest of his life. This story was actually unexpectedly wholesome. It's not often the person that's creating the conflict in the situation ends up marrying the person that's telling the story. The most funny part to me is that this kid is actually going to be so sick of hearing this story throughout his entire life over and over again.
Did you know your mom thought that I was stealing at my own store? She told me she was the owner.
So let me know if you would marry the person that accused you of stealing at your own store down below. Am I the jerk for laughing at my mother-in-law when she ate my special snacks and got way too baked? My wife and I just moved back to her hometown. We love living in a big city, but we had agreed when we got married that when we wanted to start a family, we would move to a small town. It sort of sucks, but I am only 45 minutes away from a theater and good restaurants. It's not like we're in the middle of the woods. We live in Canada. Herb is fully legal here. I like to make herb butter and cook with it. I make brownies or fudge and my wife and I both partake. Well, her not so much right now because she is breastfeeding. My wife insisted that we give her mom a key for emergencies. I disagree, but I lost the vote. So we talked talked about it and I said I was fine with it, but it was only for emergencies. She wasn't to use it to come over and clean up or anything like that. Her mom agreed and we gave her a key. Well, she followed the rules for about 2 months. My wife is out of town in the city for the weekend visiting friends. Since it is a 2-hour drive to that side of the city, she's just staying there. I came home last night and found my mother-in-law high as a kite in my living room. She had decided since my wife was out of town, I needed a home-cooked meal. One thing led to another and she found some fudge. She was so baked that all she was doing was staring at the TV. Indica will do that to you. I called my wife and laughed my butt off. She's giving me a hard time for letting her mom get like that and for laughing at her mom. My mother-in-law is currently resting in the guest bedroom. My wife's stepdad came to get her, but she is not moving. We had a few brewskis and watched the Jays get destroyed. She came into our home and ate my stuff without my permission. I'm not really upset. She is super helpful and she has always been nice to me. I just think it's hilarious. But my wife says that I'm a jerk for laughing at her mom. Jumping into the future, there's a small update. I just talked to my mother-in-law. She absolutely knew what she was eating. She just hasn't had any in a while and I guess was expecting more of an experience like Cheech and Chong, not the genetically modified hybrid that I buy. So am I the jerk? So the mom knew what she was eating when she was eating it? I mean, at no point does he say that the mom was upset about the outcome of what happened. It was only the wife that seemed to be upset that the OP was laughing at the mom, which is a tiny grievance in the grand scheme of everything. My assumption up until that tiny update was that the mom ate it by accident. And maybe part of the reason why she's not upset is that she's probably more worried about whether or not the OP was upset because she went into the house when she said she wasn't going to and ate something without his permission. But let me know what you guys think, jerk or not a jerk, and why. My parents have taken me out of their will in favor of my sister. Am I wrong to be so angry about this? I'm a 23-year-old male, and my parents, 58 and 63, have taken me out of the will in favor of my 26-year-old sister. Recently, I was helping my parents with doing a bit of late spring cleaning and throwing out a lot of old rubbish when I came across what I assume is the most recent copy of their will. I didn't mean to look at it, but when I moved it, I noticed the beneficiary section of the front only had my sister listed. Then, I know it was horrible of me to do, but I decided to have a read through it. I'm not in it at all. My sister is listed as the sole beneficiary. She will get the house, their life insurance policies, savings, car, absolutely everything. They aren't rich people by any means, but due to the way property prices have risen since they bought their house in the 80s, this probably comes into a total of about 500,000 pounds. They have always had a thing with favoring my sister a bit more than me, giving her extra attention and stuff, but I've never really minded. She is a bit of a screw up, and if I'm honest, she has needed the extra attention. I'm not gonna lie either, my financial situation is a lot better than my parents. I'm engaged, and together, me and my partner, no kids, make about 45,000 pounds a year. My sister is a single parent of 2 children, a deadbeat dad and no child support. She earns about 16,000 pounds a year. I know that is a lot of a gap and I would understand if they left her with a greater share to help her out more, but leaving me with nothing just seems so harsh. Whilst me and my fiance do earn more, we aren't exactly rolling in money, and even if they only had left me 20%, it would still be more than enough to help me start to buy my own house. Obviously, this is all hypothetical as they are both perfectly healthy and have a long time in them yet. It just seems harsh that if they were to die tomorrow, my sister would be set, whilst I would be left with nothing. Am I right to be so angry about this? Should I confront them about it or not? I know it's not my money at all, but she is a terrible daughter to them. Over the years, she has lied to them, stole money from them and me, and had to be bailed out, fines paid for illegal substance charges, etc. She barely even finished school as well, so while she is financially worse off, it's only because she has made herself so. On the other hand, I visit them all the time, help them out with whatever they ask. I went to university, which they had always wanted me to do. I paid for it 100% by myself with no help, and it just seems like they are punishing me and rewarding her for being such a failure. For some additional information, with me they have always had a parenting style of letting me make my own way. If I wanted something, I was expected to do chores and get a job to pay for it. I don't mind, and it's made me more responsible. My sister, on the other hand, they always bought her what she wanted and never really expected as much from her as me. What should I do? do? Jumping into the future, there is an update. Thank you all for your responses. I think the vast majority of you understood what I was upset about, with only a few idiots thinking that it was about money rather than validation of what I had always believed a bit, that they prefer my sister. I wanted to get this sorted out as soon as possible, so I booked the afternoon off work and I went around to see my parents, and I learned 2 new things about myself from them. Number 1, I was an accident. Apparently, after my sister, my mom had a miscarriage and they decided not to try again, and then a year later, along pops me. Because I was unplanned, they hadn't really thought through their finances, and so for about a year and a half, my dad had to work 2 jobs and has always felt that I made him miss out on my sister growing up, and that because he rarely saw me, he has never really connected with me. As for my mom, the previous miscarriage had put her off on having children. She was content with her little girl, and by then, age 39, was quite happy to be done having children. Number 2, they are disappointed with me. They don't like my fiance. They don't like that I live a 40-minute drive away. They are sad that I chose accountancy instead of doing a law degree, but most of all, they are disappointed that I am not closer to my sister. That is, friends with a girl who spent most of her life bullying me, who has threatened them appallingly, who stole money from them regularly until she moved out, and who I was persuaded to lend 2,000 pounds of my savings for university so that she could clear some debts. She never paid that back, and I had to get into a lot of debt myself to get through my final year. It's not even like I am horrible to my sister now. I love my niece and nephew and I spoil them all the time, and for their sake, we'll help her out from time to time with money for bills and food. Apparently this is why I am not in the will, and never have been, except when I was younger, where custody of me would have been given to my aunts until I was 18. They have, quote, never really seen me as their son. I was a bit too distant and self-reliant, and apparently, quote, made it easy for them to love your sister more. I'm not gonna get anything, as they don't really view me as a part of the family. Me going away for 3 years to university made it worse, but it's something that they have always felt. They asked me if I felt that it was wrong what I did, and said if I could persuade them otherwise, they would change it somewhat. My sister would still be the main beneficiary, but I would get something from them. I know you guys will probably be disappointed with me for my response, but I just left. I told them that I didn't care about the money at all, and if they cannot see me as a son, then I no longer see them as parents. So in conclusion, I am excluded as my parents are unhappy with my life choices, despite never telling me so before. Also, I was unwanted, and so they have never connected with me or viewed me as a part of the family. Because they were so focused on my sister, I became self-sufficient and grew up faster, and that made them feel more distant. My sister means more to them than I, and they don't want to change their minds or try to work things through. I have no parents now. However, a positive note, my future in-laws are awesome, and I have been calling her mum for a while now, so I do get some kind of parents. Jumping roughly 10 years into the future, there is an update. Just posting this as a little update. I found this post and managed to remember the old password. I am now 33 years old, happily married, 2 beautiful daughters, and running my own business that I started during the COVID lockdowns, which has basically helped us become fully financially independent. 0 contact with my parents or sister these past 11 years. My parents are still alive, and as a result of insane house price increases in the UK, they are probably worth closer to £1 million now, and I'm fairly certain that my sister is waiting for them to die. From what I've heard from other people, her behavior improved. No more stealing, etc., but she's still broke and in a dead-end job because she virtually has no qualifications to get anything better and no drive to improve. The only person I'm in any contact with is my nephew, my sister's son. He's nothing like his mother, absolutely brilliant mind, and currently at university studying math, and my wife and I help him with his living expenses because he wouldn't have been able to go without it, and to be honest, with his mind, it would be a waste. So am I the jerk for 0 contact for all these years given the circumstances? It's not often that we get to see an update more than 10 years later about the same subject. On one hand, I'm happy that the OPA was able to build what sounds like a very fulfilling, happy life. On the other hand, it's sad that the parents would ever look at their own child like this. I know some people in the original post thought that maybe he was exaggerating because he was emotional and making it sound worse than it was, but the fact that he came back 10 years later to say that he's had 0 contact with him makes me think that he probably wasn't exaggerating. I don't think you cut people out of your life for that long unless they've seriously done something to hurt you. The reasoning the parents give is just weird. Regardless if the child was an accident or not, that shouldn't even make a difference, first of all. But the other part of the reasoning was that they had a hard time connecting to him. Yeah, they had a hard time connecting to their own child who was a product of his environment that you put him in. Of course, there's always going to be an element of bias to anything, but But it seems pretty clear that the OP did want a relationship with his parents, but his parents saw him as a mere disappointment. And I don't think there's any way that he could have lived his life and not been a disappointment to them based on the way that they're defining him being a disappointment. It feels doomed from the start. But anyway, I'm happy to hear the OP's living his best life now, and hopefully it only gets even better. But let me know how you see the situation down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for hating my special needs sister? I'm done hiding it. When my younger sister was born, she almost died from hypoxia. She suffered severe brain damage to the point where doctors doubted that she would survive. She has survived to 16 years old now. However, she is as close to brain dead as a living person can get. She can't move, she can't communicate, she can't eat or drink on her own. She has no control over her bowels, so she has to wear diapers. She will never get better, and she will never live a normal life. Despite that, my mother has ruined our family, hoping she will have a miracle and recover. My mother has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on my sister. Everything from wheelchairs to doctor visits. We had to live in a one-bedroom apartment for 11 years because my mother spent all of the money she made on my sister. Nothing she bought made any difference. She will always be a drooling mess. Since my mother believes she will get better, she made me treat her like she was a real sister. I lost all my friends growing up because my mom made me take her everywhere I went. If I told my mom I was going to the park, she would say,
"Oh, a park. That sounds nice, like something Jess would like. Take her with you."
Not once did she stop to think about how absurd she sounded talking to her. One time, my mom took her to a movie theater. They made it barely 30 minutes through the movie before staff kicked her out because my sister was making so much noise, coughing and choking on her saliva. Despite all this, I somewhat tolerated my sister until a few hours ago. I mentioned to my mother that I had planned a date with a girl that I met at work, and my mom said,
"That sounds fun, but I'm having coffee with a friend from college, so can you take care of Jess while I'm gone?"
I told her that I couldn't because of my date and suggested that she hire a babysitter. My mother then said that I should just take her with me, and then I exploded. I told her how stupid she was for suggesting such a thing. Bring my severely disabled, crippled sister along with me on a date with a girl because you are too lazy to hire a sitter? How crazy are you to think that that's a good idea? Every moment of my life has been about Jess. I'm not supposed to have a career or a family of my own because I need to take care of Jess when my mom dies? My mom even discouraged me from going to college because then I wouldn't be able to take care of her. I told her how much damage she has done to the family because of my sister. We struggled financially my entire life, not because my mom is low income, but because she spent all of our money on Jess. We drove a crappy 1996 Subaru Outback for years, and my mom, quote, couldn't afford to buy a new car. But she had no problem shelling out thousands to see a specialist doctor who will say the same thing every other doctor has. My sister is a glitch. She is not supposed to be here. She will never live a normal life. There's no reason she shouldn't be put in a home. I'm just so frustrated right now. I'm thinking about cutting ties with her and reconnecting with my father. My dad divorced her once he realized that the rest of his life was going to be taking care of Jess. I can't fault him. My mom forbade me from contacting him, but he's not the bad guy here. What should I do? Jumping into the future, there is an update. Thank you for all of your kind words. I realize now that my emotions should be placed towards my mother instead of my sister. As for everyone who says I should contact my father, that is my plan, but he's not easy to reach. I haven't spoken to him or seen him for a very long time, and he lives across the country. I don't have any way to get his number or email address, so I'm looking through Facebook and Instagram to see if he may have an account I can message. I also don't have anyone on his side of the family who I can ask to get us in touch. As for my living situation, I'm still living at home. I plan to stay for a while longer until I have saved enough money to afford an apartment or enlist in the Navy. I work part-time while I'm in community college, so I'm not making much money. I hope I will have another update in the near future, and I hope things will get better. Jumping into the future, there is one final update, and it is shocking, so if you want to skip this part, just jump to the next story in the video. My mom is dead. I came home to a bunch of police cars around my home. She did it to herself with a rope, and a neighbor saw her from the window. I didn't get a good look at her, and I'm glad that I didn't. I don't think I could handle seeing anyone like that. The last couple of days, she seemed stressed out, but I didn't expect this. Right now, plans are getting set to place Jess in a home. She will have around-the-clock care. I'm not sure what stage of grief I'm at right now. I have a place to stay for a while, and I'm getting my finances in place. I miss my mom. She wasn't a good mom, but she was my mom. I tried reaching out to my father through a family member on his side. To make a long story short, my father basically said that he had moved on from us, and that he didn't want me intruding on his new family. Pretty much what I expected. wanted, but it still hurt to hear my dad say he wants to forget about me. I'm staying at a friend's house right now. I'm working and I'm doing school. Things are still rough, but I'm pushing through. Thank you for all the well wishes. What should I do? The ending to this was a lot darker and a lot more sad than I expected. There was clearly a lot more going on in the mother's mind that we didn't ever get a chance to see. It's hard to speculate on things like this without knowing, because it could be for any number of things. It could be because she felt hopelessness because her daughter Jess was going to be like that for the rest of her life and she was coming to terms with it at the same time that her son wanted to leave and cut all ties with her, leaving her to bear the entire responsibility of Jess by herself. From the way the OP tells the story, from the highlights that we get of the bigger picture, it seems like that's maybe the case, or maybe it could be something completely unrelated. We'll just never really know. As much as I feel for what the mother was going through, doing this to yourself and leaving your son behind is going to be something that he will probably never heal from. If any of you guys have ever experienced this, I think for most people it's something that sticks with you for the rest of your life. Sometimes people call this the God-shaped hole, which for a lot of people makes them become religious, and for other people it makes them fall prey to overusing substances. Everyone's different, obviously. So let me know your thoughts on this story down below and what advice you would give to someone in a position like this. A Karen goes after a Disney cast member and only stops when she thinks she got what she wanted. But it turns out she fell for a trick. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I was working at the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular, or Epic as it was known to the cast members, and we had already closed the theater for the start of a show. When the theater gets to max capacity, we legally can't put more people in there because of fire code, etc. This woman barrels up to me, gets within 6 inches of my face, and waves her paper fast pass ticket in my face. She demanded to be allowed into the show and screamed that her child, a little boy, no more than 6 years old, needs to see this show or his day is ruined. She was screaming so loud, veins were popping out of the front of her head. I stood there, calm and collected, explaining to her that the theater is full and we can't let anyone else in. She pushes past me with one arm, holding her child's arm in the other. She marches straight for the ropes that block the entrance and tries to hoist her son over the rope. Before she gets that far, a manager walks up and puts his hands into the air to try to contain the situation. He offers to get the kid an ice cream and provide VIP seats to the next show if she calms down and comes back later. After screaming about how rude I was to her, which I was not, she accepts the token of kindness. My manager turns to me and asks how long my shift is today. I told him I was off work at 6:30. He nods and tells the irate woman that he will have me personally escort her to the VIP section down front. He writes her a ticket voucher for the ice cream and seats, and she fumed off with not even a thank you. My manager turns to me and apologizes on behalf of her. Then he asks me, how many more shows do we have today? I look at the clock and realized it was after 5 p.m. and well in the middle of our last show of the day. I looked at my manager as a sly smile crept across his face. He had just given an entitled parent a VIP pass to a show that won't happen. The respect I already had for him just skyrocketed through the roof. I was long gone by the time she came back, but I would love to imagine the look on her face when she came back at 7 for the show. Kid got an ice cream and mom got mad. It was a win-win. Am I the jerk? Sometimes when people freak out on employees like this, they forget or don't care that the employees are people too. It's almost like they look at them as some sort of inanimate objects, like it's a robot talking to them and they can just act however they want, or that the employees have some sort of personal stake in it. And that's why a lot of times jobs like these feel dehumanizing, because that's how some people treat you. But all that said, what the manager did was obviously very clever, but I can't help but think it's just going to be kicking the can down the road, because I cannot possibly imagine a scenario where the Karen here just says, oh, the show was canceled, I guess I'm fine, I'll leave now and forget about all of this. What's probably realistically going to happen is it's going to pass the buck to whoever has to deal with customer service later on. But if you were working here at this place and you were the manager, how would you handle the situation, and jerk or not a jerk, and why? Let me know down below. An entitled woman thinks that I am a waiter when I'm not and demands that I take her order. When I tell her no, she steals my notebook and tackles me to the ground. A little bit of a backstory here. Me and my friends were going out for lunch, and the people that were waiters always had a white shirt and always seemed to have jeans on. I was wearing a very similar getup of a light gray shirt and some Calvin Klein jeans. Okay, on with the story. Today I was going to meet up with a friend at a restaurant that I had been to a couple of times and knew the people who ran the place. Me and my friend had just sat down at the table when I realized I had to pee really bad. I asked him to order me the deluxe burger combo with a Coke. If the waiter came back before I came back. He said okay, and I went to the bathroom. After I came out of the bathroom, I started walking towards a table that I was seated at. On the way there, I heard a lady's voice go, and I just walked by thinking that she was talking to somebody else at her table. But I hear a scratching noise of chairs on the ground, and a couple seconds later, feel 2 fast taps on my shoulder. I turn around, and this is where it goes down.
Mister.
I turn around and say, yes?
May I take my order? It's getting busy and I'm not sure where my waiter is.
I'm not your waiter.
Oh, but obviously you are a waiter. Look at your clothes.
Yes, I do look like the other waiters, and I do understand why someone would be mistaken, but not this mistaken. So I tell her, yes, I may look like one of the waiters, but I am not a waiter. I try to walk off, but this woman forcibly tugs on my shirt, pulling me back hard.
I want you to take my order. I am getting hungry and I want my food.
I already said I'm not your waiter. Now shove off. This rude lady is visibly angry and yet again tugs on my shirt to pull me back, but she makes me tumble to the ground. I fall on her and she goes down with me.
How dare you? I want to speak to your manager.
Her husband says, rude lady, maybe you should calm down. He doesn't exactly look like the other waiters.
Shut up! I'm trying to take our order.
But
Shut up!
At this time, people are starting to notice what is going on and are watching with intent, including my friend.
Speaking of, where is that pad thing that all the waiters seem to have?
I've already said, I am not a waiter. She then looks intrudingly in my back pocket and sees the sketchbook that I always carry around with me. I'm an artist, so it's always good to have one. So whenever an idea pops into my head, I can draw it on the spot. I also carry art materials with me at all times, but those are in my backpack, which I left at the table. She goes and grabs the sketchbook out of my pocket and starts flipping through it.
There it is. I'll just do it myself. What? Why are there other people's orders in here? And why are there drawings?
She says it like it's a bad thing to have drawings in a sketchbook, and it also clearly says sketchbook on the front. Give it back.
No, I'm going to report you to the manager for not taking orders and drawing on this notebook instead. I'll get you fired.
She had a devilish grin on her face and starts walking towards the other waiter in the room at the time, but my friend stands up and walks over to the rude lady.
Hey, I'll give him his notebook back. It's his, it's not yours.
My friend knows how much that sketchbook means to me and is the only person I know who would do that kind of thing. He takes it out of her hands and gives it to me.
There you go, man.
Little did we know, another waiter in the room at that time had seen the whole thing and went to the manager. The manager came back into the room and starts talking to the rude lady. Me and my friend take the opportunity to get out of the restaurant while the rude lady is busy. A couple hours later, the manager contacted me. I know her from high school, we went to the same one, and told me about the rude lady and said that she is not welcome in the restaurant anymore. I just now realize I never did get that deluxe burger combo that I wanted. So, what should I have done? The implicit question in this whole thing is, would you do all of that to a normal waiter? The excuse can't be, I thought that was a waiter, if you would never do that to a normal waiter. Would you really grab a waiter's notebook? Would you scream at them, berate them, or grab them to the point that they fall on the ground? Yeah, maybe you would if you're a total jerk, but a normal person wouldn't do that regardless if they were a waiter or not. She does basically tackle the OP to the ground. And I think for some people, that's when all bets are off. Not everybody would be as peaceful as the OP was in this situation. But let me know how you would handle this down below. Am I the jerk for refusing to drive my girlfriend around anymore? My girlfriend and I have been together for 8 months. In that time, I was in an accident and my insurance wrote off my car and I only got $2,400 from it. It's not enough to buy a working car and I've been saving to buy a better one, although it will take a few months. I asked my girlfriend to borrow her car and she agreed if I drive her to work every day and then pick her up since she needs to go to work every day too. And I have to be the designated driver during our dates and even girls' night, which is about every 2 weeks. So for the last month, I have to get up at 6 because my girlfriend's work is at 7, drive her there, drive home, get ready for my work at 9, then I have to pick her up again at 4, using my lunch break and then drop her home and get to work again and come home at 5:30. It's so much work, not to mention every date night I drive, so I never get to relax. And when she hangs out with her friends, I have to drive her there, usually at 6, and pick her up again at 9 or 10. Bus routes take an hour and 45 minutes to get to my work, so that isn't an option. But her work is much closer. It would only take her 45 minutes to get to work by bus. I've asked her to take the bus so I can use the car for a few months while I save up and I'll pay for the insurance and gas. But she refuses, saying it's her car and if I'm not happy with our setup, then I can take the bus. She is so selfish and not willing to compromise. I've tried to get her to agree to take the bus 2 to 3 days a week, but she just won't, and just tells me if I don't like it to take Ubers. An Uber to my work and back would cost $110, and I only make $200. It's not worth it for me to even go to work. I'm pissed and refuse to give her the keys, saying that she can take the bus that day, and she grabbed my wallet and used my credit card to get herself an Uber without my permission. She screamed at me to give her back the keys, but I've hidden them, and now we're at a standstill. Am I the jerk for refusing to drive my girlfriend around anymore? What? How is this not the most obvious jerk behavior? He begged to use her car, didn't like the arrangement, and now is just refusing to give her back the keys because he doesn't want to drive her around? This is some delusional, entitled behavior. She helped him out as much as she was comfortable doing, and he immediately tried to take advantage of the situation. I get that it sucks to be driving all over the place all the time, but she also has to live with not being able to use her own car. Both people have trade-offs in this situation, and she doesn't even need to take that trade-off. Maybe you guys see this situation completely differently. If you think he's in the right, let me know down below, jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for telling my mom and stepdad the real reason I was upset? I am a teenage girl, and I was born when my mom was 18 years old. I see my dad about 3 days a year at Christmas. My dad doesn't want me as much as he wants his other kids, but I try not to take it personally. My stepdad, who's been in my life since I was 5, is really nice to me, but I don't think he would care if I didn't exist. But he makes my mom and little brother, my mom and stepdad's biological kid, so happy and does a lot for me. And for that, he means everything to me. My mom is pregnant again, and this time I get to have a little sister. I'm just a little nervous, but my stepdad hasn't said anything about having his first daughter, so I really do appreciate him being sensitive to me, even though I don't think he considers me to be his daughter. My mom is excited for another daughter too, and has been shopping for clothes and putting together a nursery with me because I am really good at art and am painting a mural for my sister. She keeps saying things to me like, "I am so grateful to be able to give all this to the baby that I wasn't able to give to you," and that she is blessed and that she doesn't have to do it alone, and that she's really excited to see my stepdad be a dad again. I know I'm being selfish, so please don't think low of me because of course I want my mom to be happy, but when she says things like this, I feel like I am worth less and I am a burden. And then I feel bad for feeling bad because I want my mom to have a good life, and she did at least stick around because she could have left me like my dad did. Painting is a really therapeutic thing for me, so I've been hiding away painting at the nursery. At dinner today, my mom asked me why I've been so quiet, and I told her about my feelings, and she got sad, and my stepdad had to comfort her. I told her that I love her and I was so grateful that she is my mom and for all that she's done for me, but she was still upset. I feel like the jerk because I knew she would get sad when I told her my feelings, but I told her anyway. I think that hurting someone's feelings on purpose is the worst thing you can do, but I know it's important to be honest, so I'm really conflicted. Can you guys tell me if I am being a jerk, and I will make my mom and stepdad breakfast in bed to make it up to them and finish the nursery at night to surprise them. A few hours later, there was an update. I went to talk to my mom, but she was sleeping. My stepdad asked to talk to me. He said he never wanted to put this on me, but it was the time. He told me that he loved me and that I am his daughter, no questions asked. He said he didn't want to talk to me about being my dad because he didn't want to bring up bad feelings for me about my real dad. He wants to adopt me, but didn't want to pressure me, and if he did, my biological dad would have to sign away his rights. He was worried that my biological dad would, number one, not put up a fight and that it would hurt me, or number two, fight but not want to see me anymore and hurt me, so he was avoiding the topic. I said I want him to be my real dad and that I want his last name. He said we will see what we can do, and if it doesn't work we can try and hyphenate, and I can still use his last name as mine on my jerseys and stuff for soccer, and that as soon as I turned 18 we would change it. He told me he would take care of me forever and that he is so proud of me and that I have never been and never will be a burden. He said I don't need to be so nice all the time, and if I'm an evil teenage girl, he'd still love me as much as he does now. He also told me that he never wants me to feel pressured to babysit because even though they are young parents to me, they are still my parents and it's their job to raise us all. Jumping into the future, there is a final update. I talked to my mom this morning and she said she wasn't mad at me, she's just mad at herself. She told me she wishes she could have given me more, and I told her that she gave me more time with her and that was enough for me. She said she had no idea how to be a mom when I was born and doesn't know how I turned out to be so good, but she is happy. She told me that I better be selfish today because she wants to go shopping and buy me lots of things. She said I have never been a burden and that I'm the best thing that's happened to her. She said I should go to therapy because because being a people pleaser is bad. Also, my mom and dad called my biological dad this morning and he agreed to sign away his rights. I got a little sad and cried a lot. And I don't know why, because I wanted him to sign them away, but my mom and stepdad hugged me a lot, and we are going to have a party tonight with both my mom's family and my dad's family. My dad's family, especially my grandma and grandpa, are really excited that I am finally going to have their last name. And grandma has sent me pictures of gold necklaces she wants to have made for me with my new last name. So in the end, do you think I handled the situation right? This one tugs on the heartstrings. There's something that's so intense about having that perspective, being that young, and just wanting so bad to feel like a member of the family. And the stepdad adopting the OP here is pretty much the ultimate symbolic moment of that coming to be. I do completely understand why she would cry when the biological father just chose to relinquish all of his rights to her, because even though she obviously wanted the stepdad to be her dad, how could that not hurt to have your biological father point blank, clear as day, put on paper that he no longer wants to have any parental rights to you? It's better than the alternative where he just keeps her in this endless limbo where he doesn't sign her away, but he also doesn't want to be her father. But still, how could it not hurt? All things considered, I'm glad it worked out the way it did, but let me know how you see the situation down below. The amount of time my girlfriend has spent sleeping has made me stop loving her. I sound awful, but you have no idea. She has always slept more than me. That's fine. Lately, it's just been too much. She falls asleep at, let's say, 10 p.m. and then wakes up at noon the next day, sometimes even after 2 p.m. Then she takes a nap 2 hours later for between 3 and 6 hours. I think my final straw was yesterday. She woke up at 9, took a 6-hour nap at 11, then after waking up at 5 p.m.-ish, cleaned for an hour, then took a 5-hour nap after that. She spent 11 hours of her daytime sleeping. I'll get hate for this as well, but it's affected our bedroom life. Every time I say I'm in the mood, she just falls asleep. And I don't mean she says not tonight and then falls asleep. I mean she just falls asleep. One time it was the afternoon we both had off and I suggested it. She was excited, went to bed, and I went to freshen up a bit. I came back 3 minutes later and she was passed out. I get I'm not owed anything, but I'm having a dry spell because she just sleeps. I keep telling her this isn't normal and she needs to see a doctor, but she refuses. She says I'm controlling because I can't have her all the time. She seems to think it's normal for a person to sleep 20 hours a day. I just stopped caring now. I can't leave her, but she makes me feel ignored because she chooses her bed. A few have hearkened on the bedroom life that I mentioned. No, it is not my only concern. It was the most reoccurring pattern. We've had dry spells, some for 2 months, and there's no issue. She could say no and then I'd be fine. The difference is her saying no versus her saying that she wants to, then falling asleep within 3 minutes every time. There's other issues as well. She'll just forget to feed the cat, do dishes on her day to do dishes, and has me cook almost everything. The difference is that those can be on and off, where some days she does and others she doesn't. Jumping into the future, there is an update. I didn't expect this to blow up, but it did. I wanted to clarify some things first. We're both 28 years old. I work full time. She had a full-time job, but she quit 2 months ago. Since then, she's been looking for work, but the sleep issues started 2 weeks ago. My biggest mistake was mentioning our bedroom life, as people took it to mean that I cared more about that than her. It was the easiest thing to show how my frustration had built up. Obviously, I care about her health too. I said before we've gone for months without it, and I've had no problems. And even if we did do the deed, I would still be concerned. But I get how it comes off, and that was my mistake. As for the people calling me a jerk because I didn't take her to the doctor, what was I supposed to do? She's an adult and I can't make her go somewhere. Plus, after she called me controlling, I couldn't continue pushing since I was reminded of who my ex was. Also, a lot of you said that I didn't care or was selfish. I was frustrated over what I was seeing and I wanted my old girlfriend back. I wanted her to be better. You can say that makes me a horrible person if you wish. So here's the update. I took some of your advice and first told her parents. They can't make her do anything, but they know now. I gave her an ultimatum, get help or I leave. I made it clear that I will not sit around as she sleeps all day. It is not normal and she needs help. I said I will help in any way I can. Long story short, we broke up. She got mad saying she was just more tired and it'll be fine. In that moment, I knew that I didn't love her anymore. How could I love someone who sees I'm concerned and call me a manipulative jerk? It was her apartment, so I left. I called her parents again to let them know and to take care of her cat since I could not. not. I know I'll get hate, but I don't know what else to do. She refused my help and I can't help someone who doesn't want it. I had to move in with my parents again. I feel like a failure. A 28-year-old man stuck with mommy and daddy all because he was too weak to make it work. I don't know if it's the right feeling, but it's how I feel. Am I the jerk? In most cases, you really can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped, but there is obviously a serious medical issue going on with her. It's not like this was happening her entire life. The OP says that it started happening 2 weeks ago. And how could you not be totally surprised and shocked that this massive of a sleep difference happened in only the last 2 weeks? I have no idea what would cause somebody to sleep for 20 hours a day. Maybe you guys have some ideas, but one of the common things that seems to be thrown around is the possibility of thyroid issues. Somebody commented and said, right before I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease, which affects the thyroid, I started feeling super sleepy all the time. It didn't matter how much I slept, it still felt like I hadn't. Besides that, I think depression and tiredness and a lack of energy is a symptom too. So if this was your boyfriend or girlfriend and they just suddenly started sleeping 20 hours a day, what would you do? How would you handle the situation, and jerk or not a jerk, and why? A Karen in a Walmart thinks that I work there and screams at me for poor customer service. But I'm 12 and I don't work here, lady. She doesn't want to understand that. So here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. When this story happened, I was 12. Basically, I was a tiny child, always have been. Back then, I looked like I was 11 or so. I'm not sure why this woman thought that I worked at Walmart, but I think she needs to get her eyes checked, because in no way, shape, or form did I look like I was old enough to begin working. To this day, I still don't understand what made me look like I was working at Walmart, but maybe telling this story will make other people understand where she is coming from, because I don't. Here's the situation. I was at Walmart alone because I was buying my dad a birthday present and he had driven me there. In fact, he was waiting outside. My parents had always made sure that I learned to keep myself safe, and so far I had done a great job at that. So I'm in the card aisle and I see a whole mess of cards that are very out of order, if that makes any sense. Me being the perfectionist that I am, I decide to rearrange them so they at least look like they're in order. But unfortunately, I hear that sound that we all know. At first, I didn't think anybody was talking to me, because why would anyone be talking to me? But once I turn around, I see a woman that looks fairly short with the classic Karen haircut staring straight at me. At first, I think that I'm just in her way and I simply just apologize and move out of the way. I'm sorry, ma'am. And I continue to search for a good card for my father's birthday. Then she scoffs at me as if I just offended her family.
Well, aren't you gonna help me?
Pardon?
Obviously, I don't know where I am, so just show me where the baby diapers are now.
Now, I know exactly where everything is in this Walmart, but I don't want to walk around the store with a woman I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't work here, therefore I can't help you.
You Walmart workers are all the same, aren't you? I want to speak to your manager.
At this point, I'm confused as to why she isn't getting the message, and like I said before, I look way too young to be working here. Ma'am, I don't work here. Please leave me alone. I'm getting uncomfortable. As I turn to leave, she grabs me, spins me around, crouches down, and yells at me for not showing her where the diapers are.
Don't you dare walk away from a paying customer.
At this point, I am literally shaking and on the verge of tears because I've never been harassed by an adult before. An employee hears the screaming and runs over to see this woman practically holding me hostage while screaming at me. The employee removes her hands from me and asks me if I know her. No, I'm just here to get a present for my dad. Okay, I'm gonna call the cops if you don't leave right now, he said, turning his attention to the woman.
I just don't understand why she won't direct me to the diapers.
Ma'am, this girl's about 11 years old, and she doesn't even look like she's an employee here. She's not even wearing the uniform. The woman abruptly walks out of the store. No more words are exchanged out of her. I thank the employee, grab a card I was looking at before she interrupted, paid, and walked out of the store praying she still wasn't out there. I told my dad what happened and he was furious. Neither one of us can understand how she thought I worked there. I never saw her again, and I hope it stays that way. What should I have done? The concept of the story started off sounding pretty funny because it was so absurd that somebody would mistake a kid who's not even in uniform as being an employee of Walmart just because they were organizing the cards. But then it kind of took a more serious turn than I expected. The Karen in this situation actually seemed more unhinged than I originally expected and was basically screaming at her in her face, grabbing her, which is taking it over the line. That's beyond a simple misunderstanding. And something's got to be seriously wrong if you think it's okay or normal to do this to a person in general, let alone a 12-year-old, to grab them because you think they're not giving you sufficient customer service? Hopefully one day they do find her so this doesn't happen to more people in the future. But let me know how you would have handled the situation down below. This is a military revenge story. A soldier wants out of the army. The commander agrees pending good behavior. The soldier messes around and ends up in the brig before getting kicked out. Back in my army days, I was once in command of a unit of about 80 soldiers in Hawaii. Most of the soldiers in my command were great people, happy to do their jobs and take home a paycheck. Hard workers, creative, adaptable to unusual army conditions, and generally reliable. But there was one who was trouble from the start. Gentle reader meets Private Wiggles. My first awareness of Wiggles came 2 or 3 days after I'd taken command of the unit. We're prepping for a month-long training exercise to Thailand, and Platoon Sergeant Maggie tells me Wiggles might not be able to go as she just had an outpatient medical procedure. Departure is about a week away, and I have to validate the personnel roster to make sure we've got logistical support for everyone we're bringing, transportation, food, lodging, etc. So I talk directly with Wiggles and ask if she's okay to travel and participate in the exercise. Wiggles says it's not a problem, she can handle it. We get to Thailand and set up camp on a Thai army base. 2 days in, and the medical section sends a runner to find me. Wiggles is at our medical clinic, tents with cots and surprisingly extensive medical supplies, laid out with extreme abdominal pain. I cruise over to the clinic tent, and the physician's assistant, PA, on duty, tells me a couple of things. Wiggles acknowledged recently having an abortion, the previously mentioned outpatient medical procedure, and the PA's examination, physician's assistant, and testing shows that Wiggles has the single worst case of pelvic inflammatory disease, PID, he's ever seen. Seriously, this army PA who has seen all sorts of crazy stuff from soldiers was emphatically impressed by how bad it was. Wiggles developed PID from failing to get treatment for STI infections for a long time, as in she's almost glowing from it. No judgment on the abortion, not everyone is ready for kids, and the STI-induced PID can be treated with high-dose antibiotics, which the PA has on hand. Not a problem, we've got this covered. Wiggles is released to Sergeant Deb, her section sergeant, who will make sure Wiggles takes her antibiotics and keep an eye on her for any further issues. Sergeant Deb finds me and First Sergeant Bob about a day later and tells me 2 more things about Wiggles. She's refusing to take her antibiotics and she wants to get out of the army. I again talk with Wiggles. So you want out of the army? You know you have a couple of years left on your contract, right? I know, but I'm just done being a soldier and I want to be out of the army. Okay, I can make that happen. You don't want to be here, then I don't want you to be here either. But here's the deal. You got to play by the rules. I can get you out with an honorable discharge and I'll start the paperwork as soon as we're back in Hawaii. But you need to take your antibiotics, do your job, and be where you're supposed to be. You do your part and I'll do my part for you. Sound good? Wiggles says, yep, I can do that. Spoiler alert, she couldn't do that. For the rest of the Thailand exercise, Sergeant Deb had to take control of Wiggles' meds and force her to take them, when she actually found Wiggles, who consistently found someplace else to be. At one point in the next week or so, she accused First Sergeant Bob of doing the deed with her, easily disproven as he doesn't have any STIs and Wiggles has all of them. She was just trying to stir up trouble with wild accusations, I guess. We get back to Hawaii and I start the process to get her out of the army, because as much as she's been a handful of trouble in Thailand, I'm thinking it's still easier at this point to kick her to the curb than it is to keep her around and punish her before kicking her out. I was wrong. Even as I start to work on her discharge, she ramps up the stupidity. Here are a few examples. Wiggles gets caught drinking at only 19. Wiggles and her husband lie to the on-base housing office and provide forged authorization documents to get into rent-free on-base housing that they didn't qualify for. Side note, Mr. Wiggles was no winner either. He was about to be dishonorably charged from his infantry unit for selling drugs to the other soldiers. Wiggles shows up at the infirmary to get medical treatment for facial bruising. Mr. Wiggles used his combat boots to kick her when Wiggles accused him of cheating on her. Wiggles refuses to show up for work or any unit formation and can't be found anywhere for days. Wiggles slashes all 4 tires on Mr. Wiggles' car, then attacks him with the knife when he confronts her. The military police are called, end up taking him in when Wiggles gives a sob story. But he's the one with the defensive wounds on his hands, not her. One of my male sergeants uses my open door policy to visit me one day, tells me he saw Wiggles stripping at one of the skankier gentlemen's clubs down in Honolulu the night before, and she had also convinced one of our other female soldiers to come along with her to do the same. Here's a weird one. I get a call from a temp agency asking me if it's okay for Wiggles to continue working through them as an administrative assistant for clients in town. Not uncommon for soldiers to have a second job, but with everything else that she was up to at the time, this one just had me going, what the heck? There's more, but you get the idea. At this point, Wiggles' actions are egregious enough that I can no longer just kick her out with an honorable discharge. I put her on notice that she's at risk for a court-martial. I thought that threat might keep her in line, but she just couldn't seem to stop herself from getting stupider and stupider. It's the old 80-20 problem. 80% of your time is spent dealing with 20% of your folks who are troublemakers. At this point, I'm wasting a not insignificant amount of time dealing with Wiggles' issues almost daily. I had genuinely and in good faith offered her the easy path, but I guess she figured she'd try to burn the place down on the way out since she apparently thought that she was getting what she wanted no matter what she did. I was reminded of what my old platoon sergeant used to say when I was coming up through the ranks. You want to get stupid? Go ahead, but I can get stupider. Cue the revenge. She's causing me daily headaches, so I'm going to bring the pain back to her. Honorable discharge paperwork is out the window, and I lean into the special court-martial process instead. My legal counsel tells me that Wiggles' activities are likely to get her a couple weeks confinement at most, maybe not even that. She may get a monetary fine, but she'll probably get an OTH, other than honorable discharge, potential for a bad conduct discharge, which are worse. While her actions have not been that good, they are also not that bad. I'm rational enough to understand that. I have a brief chat with Captain Morgan, Wiggles' military defense attorney, about where I'm going with this case. During our chat, I tried to be a gentleman and let him know that Wiggles is going to be trouble for him if he's not careful. He gives me a condescending, "This ain't my first rodeo, baka. I'm a big boy and I can take care of myself." Fair enough, I tried to warn you. Normally, a soldier getting a special court-martial for piddly squat might get confined to the barracks, restricted to their on-base quarters, or something similar for the duration of the process. It's not like she killed someone, right? However, my military legal counsel drops this little gem in my ear. He tells me that Wiggles has met all 5 of the conditions, danger to others, flight risk, etc., required by military law, Uniform Code of Military Justice, UCMJ, to warrant requesting confinement prior to her trial. He tells me, if you can remember these 5 conditions and elaborate on the details at our next pre-trial meeting with the military magistrate, you might be able to get her confined to the Navy brig at Ford Island until the trial. I'm a guy who likes to pay attention to sound legal advice, so I do just as he says. A couple days later, we go in for the pre-trial meeting and I run down the list for the magistrate. Boom. Magistrate orders Wiggles to be confined in the brig through her trial. First Sergeant Bob and Platoon Sergeant Maggie go to pick her up from her on-base housing. She won't open the door, but they know she's inside because they can clearly hear her and Mr. Wiggles banging away. This is important for later. The Wiggles finish up, she takes her time getting showered and dressed, and finally comes to the door when it pleases her. Off she goes to the brig. The pre-trial process takes up the next 4 weeks. During that time, I have to deal with Captain Morgan, the paralegals in his office, and various fun things to do with her pending court-martial. Other than that, it's blissfully peaceful. Wiggles chills in the brig for 4 weeks. Seriously, chills. Every time I had a visit, it was freezing in there. I'm required to make weekly welfare visits to see if she's being mistreated, if she has any needs that aren't being met, etc. It seems weird, but as her commander, I'm still responsible to make sure the brig staff aren't mistreating my soldier. Other going-ons in this time period include Mr. Wiggles fraudulently applies for a car loan and gets a van in their names. Mr. Wiggles is dishonorably discharged and kicked off the island, flies home to wherever he originally enlisted from. Captain Morgan asks me to consider an other than honorable discharge and time served in lieu of taking things all the way to trial. I'm hot to get that pound of flesh from her, but my legal counsel advises me to avoid the court-martial and just kick out Wiggles with the other than honorable discharge. After all, he says she's already been locked up for almost 3 weeks, so the magistrate will probably just give her time served and the other than honorable anyway. See my earlier comment about sound legal advice. My boss, Lieutenant Colonel Ryan, thinks I'm too invested in the case, that I'm no longer objective. Lieutenant Ryan insists on coming with me to the brig for the next welfare visit. This is 3 weeks into Wiggles' stay in those luxurious accommodations. Among other nonsense lines she throws at us, Wiggles tells us that she needs to see the dentist about a filling that's giving her trouble. trouble, and Motrin just isn't working. At the end of the visit, Lieutenant Colonel Ryan tells the guards about Wiggles' filling, asks if they can give her anything stronger than Motrin, then instructs them to follow up with the dentist. The guard actually laughs out loud at this and says, "No sir, Motrin is the best thing we can do in the brig. And the other thing, for the last 2 weeks, she's been telling anyone with ears that she wants to try getting her wisdom teeth pulled before she's kicked out. She doesn't have a problem with any fillings." It was hilarious to watch Lieutenant Colonel Ryan's face go from obvious concern for Wiggles' well-being to outright fury, and the next words out of his mouth were, "That bee lied to me." I make arrangements with Captain Morgan to accept his request for time served with an other than honorable in lieu of court-martial. Sometime later that week I get a call from the brig. Wiggles is pregnant. Remember that scene in her house 4 weeks prior? And they can't keep her confined anymore because of it. She has to be released back to her unit until the court-martial or other actions are complete. Captain Morgan stakes his reputation on Wiggles being a good girl until we can send her back home to Carolina. He'll come to regret that, and he can't say that I didn't warn him. We get Wiggles back from her 4 weeks all-inclusive stay in the brig. I've accepted Captain Morgan's request to avoid the court-martial, and I confine Wiggles to the barracks under supervision for the 9 days she has left until her flight to Carolina. Immediately, we have another mess on our hands. Wiggles is smoking in the barracks. Not a big deal that she's smoking, it's just not allowed inside barrack rooms. Wiggles is caught with a bottle of hypnotic, a liquor, in the barrack rooms. She's still only 19. Wiggles slips out of the barracks and runs off for a day when her platoon sergeant gets distracted from supervising her. First Sergeant Bob and Lieutenant Ricky, the executive officer, go to collect Wiggles' belongings from her base housing so we can box it up and ship it to her home, and they find out that Mr. Wiggles has left behind a bunch of stuff he stole from other soldiers: body armor, military equipment, some ammunition, smoke grenades, and explosives that he stole during trips to the range, all lined up right inside the front door where it's impossible to miss. They call me asking what to do. I say, just collect it all, return the equipment to the central issue facility, and dump the ammo and explosives in the nearest amnesty box. Mr. Wiggles obviously meant for Wiggles to take the fall for having it. Husband of the year. If we take that bait, Wiggles will be here forever. I don't want that. Do you? Lieutenant Ricky says, "Nope, I don't want that either. It'll be like it never happened." In light of all this drama, I bring Wiggles into my office to remind her of her agreement to be a good girl until she leaves the island, with Lieutenant Ricky as a witness in the office to protect my butt. I say, "Wiggles, you're in violation of your release agreement from the brig. You've been sneaking out of the barracks, you've been smoking, drinking." Wiggles cuts me off and says,
Yeah, I'm doing all kinds of drugs too.
she said with a heavily sarcastic voice. I tell her, "Be that as it may, I'm giving you fair warning that you're at risk of losing the deal I made with Captain Morgan. Additionally, you're pregnant again. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but most of the damage to a fetus from alcohol and smoking will come in the first few weeks after conception. I don't know if you're planning to keep this one or not, but at the rate you're going, this baby's going to be born dumber than you." Wiggles is speechless, gaping like a fish, and finally picks her jaw up off the floor. Wiggles then bolts out of my office and runs down to Lieutenant Colonel Ryan's office at the other end of the building to squeal on me for insulting her. Lieutenant Ricky is hot on her heels. She tries to rush into Lieutenant Colonel Ryan's office, but Lieutenant Ricky gets in first and fills him in. Lieutenant Ricky tells me later how it went down. Wiggles is yelling about how I called her stupid, a strangely vanilla thing for her to focus on considering everything she's done, but you do you, and that she's being mistreated. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan yells at his administrator to get Captain Morgan on the phone now. He reams Captain Morgan for his client's foolishness and tells him to fix this now, and makes various threats to Captain Morgan's career. About a half an hour later, I get a call from Captain Morgan. Captain Morgan says, "Baka baka baka." Yes, he did that whole patronizing thing. "I can't believe the words I'm hearing from Wiggles. I'm shocked. I'm just shocked that you would use language like that and call her names." Side note, my mom is an attorney and I grew up with tales from the courthouse about lawyers using this exact sort of hyperbole. "Your Honor, I am shocked. I am appalled and dismayed that the opposing counsel would attempt to paint my client in such a light." It's the kind of nonsense they said when they didn't have a good argument. So as soon as I hear the word shocked, I know I own him and immediately cut in. I say, and I bet you're appalled and dismayed too. Captain Morgan, stumbling and sounding slightly confused, says,
Well, yes, of course I am. You can't talk to soldiers like that. I know of a lieutenant colonel, a commander, who called one of her soldiers stupid, and she's no longer in command now.
I didn't call her stupid. I informed her of basic biological facts. Not my problem if she takes the news poorly. And arguably, she's not all that smart. Anyway, you called me and I'm pretty sure it isn't to warn me about what I said to Wiggles. So what do you want?
What will it take you to prevent you from kicking back our deal?
Apparently, Lieutenant Colonel Ryan had cinched his butt up good and tight. You could get her on a plane tomorrow.
How about if I get her out of here by Friday?
It was Wednesday at the time and she was due to fly out the following Wednesday. I don't think you can manage that, but good on you if you do. To his credit, Captain Morgan gets Wiggles a flight for Sunday, 3 days early. I print up official orders appointing Lieutenant Ricky as a military escort specifically for her. Lieutenant Ricky drives her to the airport and the airline desk agent calls me to verify his status when they get to the check-in counter. They give him a special pass to get through security with her. He stays with her at the gate to make sure she gets on and stays on the plane, then stays at the gate until the plane is in the air. Some boogers are hard to flick. We wanted to make sure this one landed someplace else. About a month later, I get a call from the military police about a derelict van in the parking lot with all 4 tires slashed. Guess who it belonged to? It's really kind of sad when I look back on it. I had 2 other soldiers come to me at different points asking to get out of the army ahead of their contracts. One just didn't want to be in the army anymore. The other did want to stay in the army but had family issues that would be a lot easier to deal with as a civilian. They played by the rules and I got both of them out with honorable discharges and all the benefits. They even qualified for unemployment. Too easy. Wiggles could have had the same treatment. I told her exactly what I could do for her, then had to shift gears and told her what I was going to do to her. Then I did it. I could have been her best friend on the way out the door, but instead I ended up owning her and her dumb defense attorney. She ruined her chances of transition benefits and access to the VA, and picked up a lifelong black mark for employment, all because she couldn't play nice for a few weeks. She decided she wanted to play mess around games, and we all know what happened next. So, am I the jerk for how I handled this? There is a lot more leeway that they gave to her than I would have expected in this sort of military environment. It was almost like the equivalent of putting a kid in a timeout, but the kid keeps breaking out and you can't keep giving them punishments because the punishments don't mean anything to the kid. There was actually a good point somebody brought up in the responses saying, I'd bet there's a long history of illegal substance abuse and toxic relationships at play here. She's 19 years old, wrecked with untreated STDs, stripping, bruised up, framed for crime by her husband, multiple unwanted pregnancies, etc. It kind of makes me wonder if her hubby's her pimp. That's exactly what it seems like. It seems like she's already gone through a lot of this, and she's acting more in a reactionary way than anything to the set of circumstances that may have been imposed on her from earlier in life, but also definitely from her husband. Just the fact that he was trying to set her up to get caught by putting all of those stolen things right in plain sight when they came in says a lot about the relationship. Like, he was trying to punish her here too. The OP actually responded to this and said, this bothered me at the time and does to this day. I was genuinely confused by her response to my straightforward offer to get her out of the army. Easy peasy, no harm, no foul. I left a lot of detail out for the sake of brevity, but I really did try to help her understand that I would do right by her. She just couldn't/wouldn't accept it, and I was left with no other options. Military culture is vastly different than civilian culture. Action and response timelines are dramatically shortened. We just don't have time to deal with personal issues in a caring, coaching, mentoring way, especially if the owner of those personal issues is not willing or able to be an active participant in their resolution. It makes for a good revenge story, but it wasn't my preferred outcome. If I had my druthers, I'd have sent her home amicably. I'll note here that she did not go to the same location that her husband went to when he was discharged. So let me know how you see the situation down below. How do you think you would have handled it, and jerk or not a jerk, and why? My ex-wife lost a custody battle to me and then tried to pull off an elaborate plan to frame me for stealing from her and turn me into the police. But it all backfires on her. The first half of the story is the setup, everything that happened in the divorce, a whole glitter bomb situation, and the second half is where she framed me, how she did it, and what I did in response. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I was married to a woman for 15 years and ended up divorcing her because she liked to sleep with other guys. While it took me 6 years to stumble onto this fact, she worked from home, I commuted 2 hours each way into the city, I owe it to her being either a sociopath or a narcissist, or both, why not? She She absolutely could turn on and turn off the charm and could come up with lies staring at you right in the eyes. Hindsight is 2020. Let's call her V, short for Voldemort, as one time when I was talking about her after the separation, I referred to her as she who must not be named, and the nickname stuck with all my friends and family. During the marriage, my ex and I were best friends with another couple, and for this post we'll call them Sam and Marie. Sam was and still is my best friend. Marie was V's best friend. Marie had found out about V's plans to cheat on me prior to me finding out and told V that she couldn't condone infidelity and their friendship would end if V did cheat on me. No, Marie did not tell me, and I don't blame her for not doing so. When I finally found out V was having a Facebook affair with some dude in California, we lived in Massachusetts, and if you're gonna have an online affair, don't do it while married to a computer expert. It was just 2 weeks before V was flying him out and putting him up in a hotel for 3 days. I spent those 2 weeks getting a lawyer, a private investigator, and my exit strategy together. I left her the weekend after their hotel stay. She would spend the days with him and come home for the afternoon and evening without a shred of guilt showing in her actions. The private investigator having gotten some pics and video of them leaving the hotel and eating lunch together and heading back to the hotel. I first stayed at Sam and Marie's in their in-laws' basement apartment, eventually moving into a small apartment back in the town where V lived. Fast forward 9 months and I'm divorced from V. Why it was so short to divorce is another tale. We had one daughter between us still at home, Rebecca, she was 13 at the time, and we're trying shared custody and live about a quarter of a mile apart. There are other kids from the marriage, but they were living apart from us at that time and don't play a part in this story. We had acquired a lake house during the marriage and had listed it to sell. And we had written into the divorce agreement to split the proceeds, but paying half the mortgage on that and the rent on my apartment was really stretching me thin financially. One day, Marie emails me, subject line all in caps saying, "V just tried to get me fired." Long story short, V emailed Marie's boss claiming that Marie was gossiping about V on sales calls to customers, but her boss knew it was nonsense and told V as much. Wisely, Marie didn't mess around waiting to see what was next. She went to the local courthouse that day and filed for an anti-harassment order against V. It took several visits to the judge as V chose to ignore multiple summons to court so that the judge could hear her side of the story. Eventually, the judge granted the order because V never showed up to court. During this time, V called 911 on me multiple times, one time claiming I put a letter bomb in her mailbox, the other 2 times that I had entered her apartment without her permission. The letter bomb accusation was due to me posting a link to a website where you can ship your enemy's glitter on Facebook months before and subsequently mailing her a thick bundle of forms to sign. Police were called and I had to go to V's apartment and open the letter in front of the police. Needless to say, there was no glitter, let alone a bomb. Oddly enough, this accusation came just a few days after there had been an actual bomb threat called into town hall. The 2 times I had gone into her apartment had both been to drop off Rebecca's book bag when she had forgotten it in my apartment. Both times I had texts from V granting me permission to open the door and put the book bag just inside. She would then text me after I had done so, trying to revoke permission. To this day, I think V thinks that if she deletes a message on her end, the message is deleted on my end. Even though kids will be kids and Rebecca did forget her book bag at my place on at least one other subsequent occasion, I did not fall for V's ruse a 3rd time. All forgotten book bags were delivered by Rebecca and I, meeting halfway between apartments. Also included with the multiple 911 calls were multiple minor child wellness checks on evenings when I had Rebecca at my apartment. It's so much fun having to explain to your child why the police are showing up at 8 o'clock at night just to see if she is okay. Basically, V was trying to get me frustrated so that I would react badly. Throughout this whole mess, Sam and Marie have been lifesavers to me and Rebecca, my daughter, hosting and cooking weekly family dinners for us. They are Rebecca's godparents, and just being absolute rock steady in their support and tolerance of the situation. Around this time, V filed for sole custody. At the strong urging of my lawyer, I insisted on being a guardian ad litem, a GAL, being appointed to represent Rebecca's best interests, her being a minor. Of course, the parents must pay the fees of the GAL. At this point, my finances are really getting worrisome. I write an email to V saying we need to drop the price of the lake house and get that sold regardless of profit. I needed that albatross off from around my neck so I could continue to afford to live where I could co-parent Rebecca as well as fight the custody battle. So there I am, going deeper into debt, can't pay rent and mortgage long term, and V is starting another court battle for full custody. With no other choice, I move back in with Sam and Marie so I can continue to pay my lawyer and keep fighting. About a week after I'm settled back in with Sam and Marie, I hear from Rebecca that V's glass patio table was smashed the previous night. I was in New Hampshire that evening with witnesses, so it couldn't have been me. I was paying for Rebecca's cell phone, and we have Life 360, so we could know where each other was at any time. Due to an earlier threat by V to take the two youngest kids and move to California to be with the idiot from Facebook. Plus it had history, so I could at least prove my phone was in New Hampshire. Rebecca says she knows I was in New Hampshire and tells me she'll tell her mother that it wasn't me. The next day I was served with a restraining order, an RO, claiming that I had vandalized V's patio furniture and that she felt afraid due to the letter bomb incident. The cop knew that it was nonsense, but the judge had no knowledge of the incident when V filed the restraining order and had to take her at her word. The restraining order was for 10 days, and then I could show up in court and contest it being continued. The officer who served the restraining order explained that he had to confiscate any firearms and licenses. While I did have a recently acquired Class A concealed carry license, actually from a couple's firearm course that was an anniversary gift from V the previous year, I hadn't any firearms other than a BB gun of Rebecca's. The officer left with just the Class A license, smiling as he said he was pretty sure I wasn't going to go on a rampage with a BB gun. The first thing I did the next day was to go to the police station and request all incident reports that involved me since I left her. I knew of 7 incidents, but the desk sergeant informed me they had 19 incident reports from V. He talked to me a bit, clearly trying to get a feel for what kind of person I was and just what was going on. We parted company with him assuring me that the patrol officers would now know what was going on and the police department would do right by me so long as I kept my cool. Fair enough. 2 nights before the court appearance to contest the restraining order, Sam, Marie, and I are sitting on their porch, drinking some brewskis and brainstorming about what I'm going to say to the judge. I'm a bit discouraged because I know it's going to be a he said, she said situation, and I'm living in Massachusetts. If your chromosomes don't match, you are a second-class citizen when it comes to parental rights. Plus, V deserves an Oscar for how well she plays the victim. It wasn't looking good. My only hope was if V decided the restraining order itself was enough to make me look bad to the GAL and not show up and let the restraining order expire. Marie suddenly said, "Hey, let me see that restraining order." I handed it over to her. "Hey, this is my judge. She's the judge that granted me the anti-harassment order against V." "You're kidding." Sam and I look at each other in amazement. "I swear it is. Let me go get it." Marie goes inside and comes back a few minutes later with her court order. Sure enough, it's the same judge. My grin felt like it was going to split my lips. Now I knew exactly what to do. And this is where the revenge begins. The court date to contest the restraining order arrived, and I'm there first thing, just me, no lawyer, because he had to appear in court elsewhere. I strongly hoped that V wouldn't show up, but she did. With someone other than her divorce lawyer, and before court was in session, her new lawyer approached me and offered to let the no contact order lapse, but wanted a do not abuse order left in place. I politely declined her offer, stating that I had done nothing to warrant either order and that I wanted the judge to hear my argument. V's lawyer was taken aback by this a bit and then shrugged as if to say, "It's your funeral," and walked back to where V was sitting. We went in front of the judge and V told her side of the story and I started telling mine, including all the incident reports from the police department, but V and her lawyer didn't have copies of all of them. So the judge sent us back to the gallery to await a second call while V and her lawyer reviewed the reports. When we were called back, the judge started to go into the content of the police reports and I stated that the content was almost irrelevant, but she insisted on going through them. During that, V emphasized the 2 incidents where I briefly entered V's apartment with her permission, but she characterized them as me doing so without her permission. I said that if necessary, I would be able to provide the communications where she gave me permission, but I didn't have them with me today. When going through the first police report from the night I found out about the online affair, wherein V claimed that I had brain lesions, questions, V also tried to characterize me as having multiple personality disorder, as told to her by our shared primary care physician. The judge asked her,
"So his doctor told you this without his permission?" "Yes, Your Honor."
The judge looked at me puzzled. I shrugged and said, while slowly shaking my head in disbelief, "I have a very close relationship with my doctor. I highly doubt he would violate HIPAA." She looked a little nonplussed, but I think she got the message that V wasn't entirely being truthful. As that was the last police report to go, I reminded her that my point wasn't the content, but that I thought V was using the courts to harass and intimidate me and to make me look bad to the GAL. And I brought up that this isn't out of character for V, as she has an anti-harassment order put in place against her, put there by Your Honor, Your Honor. The judge blinked at that bit of information. I gave her the details and reminded her that V declined to show up at multiple hearings. As I recounted the particulars of Marie's story, the judge squinted her eyes more and more and her frown got deeper and deeper. She turned to V and her voice was slow, cold fury.
"Do you have an anti-harassment order in place against you?"
V's voice was so small and weak.
"Yes, Your Honor."
I so wanted to look at V's face to see her reaction, but I kept my eyes locked on the judge. The judge pointed at V.
"Why didn't you show up to the hearings?"
A pause as V struggled to find some excuse.
"Because I didn't want to associate with that."
But the judge waved her to silence. I think that was the turning point, as I think she was going to grant the request for the do not abuse, but she turned to me and sternly said,
"I think there is a bit of this going on both sides, but clearly she wants you to stay out of her apartment."
"Never again, Your Honor."
"Restraining order terminated."
And with a bang of her gavel, we were done. Because the restraining order was terminated, legally that meant that it never happened. I got my Class A concealed carry license back the next day and ultimately won the custody battle, a large part of which was the termination of the restraining order, but also due to V's subsequent increasingly poor emotional and verbal treatment of Rebecca. So, am I the jerk for how I handled this? Before you decide, there is an update from the future. My ex-wife tries to frame me for theft. Here's the background. At this point in the saga, having lost the custody battle, V is moving to New Hampshire to be with her primary lover, now husband number 5. A detail that amuses me to this day is that he shares the same first name as the Facebook lover from California, as mentioned in the first post. I always refer to them as Paul number 1 and Paul number 2 when talking about them. Yes, I'm easily amused. So here's the incident. About a month after the custody hearing at which I got full physical custody of Rebecca, V and I had an email exchange in which we agreed that I would go to her apartment and take Rebecca's captain's bed and some of Rebecca's belongings the day before movers arrived to pack up Voldemort's stuff, V. She was moving 75 miles away to central New Hampshire. Having burned pretty much every bridge in that area, as Sam drives a truck, he graciously agreed to come along to both help and to be a witness. So we get there at 7:20 p.m. and knock at the door. After a brief wait, V opens the door, iPhone glued to her ear. She sullenly mumbles something about her stuff being upstairs and then heads off to her second floor bedroom, weaving and mumbling something that made me stop and think. I didn't quite get it, but I recall thinking, I really cannot go in here at all without a witness. I stick my head out the door and say, Sam, come on, you need to come in with me. So we go in. Holy cow, it's not quite filthy, but it's beyond cluttered. By now, V has disappeared into her room, complete with slamming the door, so it takes me a bit of wandering to find Rebecca's room. It's not just that she's in the middle of packing, but there is crap everywhere. Dust, cobwebs, tracked in dirt, unwashed dishes, empty boxes of wine, dry dog food scattered and trampled underfoot. I could see that it's quite a nice place, an open living area with a balcony overlooking it, and lovely woodwork and exposed beams and inset shelves in the walls. An antique wood stove on a hearth is blazing away. Really, lots of potential, but a tip nonetheless. So Sam and I start gathering up Rebecca's stuff and take some stuff out to the car. I realize we need an Allen wrench to take apart the bed, so I go out to the car to get one and come back in. In lull of the activity, she had come back into the living area, but went right back into her bedroom as we climbed the stairs, phone still glued to her ear. It takes a bit, but we finally get the bed taken apart and have moved most of the stuff in Rebecca's room out to the front lawn. Without conferring, it's clear that Sam and I both decided to get the stuff to the front lawn and not worry about about packing the vehicles until after we're completely out of the house. It's at this point that things start to get weird. Sam is carrying out the second to last load when V pops out of her bedroom door, looks out from the balcony and says,
"Why are you taking stuff out of my house?"
Sam drops what he's carrying and exits the house. He knew what was up instantly. I come out of Rebecca's room and V clearly didn't realize that I was there and say, "You agreed via email that we would take Rebecca's bed tonight." She looks startled and says,
"Is that Rebecca's stuff?"
"Of course it is. You said her stuff was in her room."
"Fine."
She goes back into her bedroom. I take what I'm carrying and go outside. Sam says, "Dude, that's not right. We need to call the police." You're absolutely right. I could tell that Sam was expecting me to object, and he does a double take when he realized that he wasn't going to have to convince me. "Crowsville Police Department, you're on a recorded line." "Yes, hi, my name is Jack Crow. I live at 321 Main Street here in Crowsville." While I'm talking to the police on the phone, I'm aware of V coming to the door and opening it and becoming quite agitated as she realizes that I'm talking to the police. By the time I finish the following explanation, she has slammed the door and is tromping around inside the living area, heatedly talking on her phone. I tell the police I'm at my ex-wife's apartment getting some of my daughter's belongings as we had agreed to via email, and while I'm getting the last of the stuff out of the house, she suddenly asks, "Why are you taking stuff out of my house?" So in order to protect all parties, I'm asking that a police officer come by to verify with Miss Crow that she agreed to this and that she is fine with what we have removed from the house. "An officer will be right there, Mr. Crow." As I'm waiting for the officer to arrive, leaning nonchalantly against the front of Sam's truck, Sam is standing there next to me, just shaking his head. "I'm gonna call Marie and just let her know what's going on." Right about here, V throws the front door open, muttering something about not having gotten all of Rebecca's stuff, and proceeds to deposit another laundry basket piled high with clothes and other items on the front stoop, and then disappears back inside. I start to whistle, pop goes the weasel. Most of the stuff we moved is still sitting on the front lawn. We leave it there. About 5 minutes later, the officer arrives. He steps out of the patrol SUV and I slowly approach him, arm extended to shake his hand. "Good evening, officer. I'm Jack Crow."
"Evening, Crow. Ali Johnson."
We shake hands, I give him a brief explanation of the situation, and he comments that I was right to call him and that he'll go speak to V. He's up there for about 2 minutes and then comes back down.
"You guys are good to go."
We briefly chat with him, apologizing for having to get him involved, and he replies,
"No, you did the right thing. If a woman in Massachusetts says something bad about you and you've got stuff dangling between your legs, you're gonna be in trouble."
I liked him a lot after that. We start loading the rest of the stuff and he asks,
"How much more is in the house?"
"Nothing. It's all out here except that last laundry basket on the stoop that Miss Crow brought out while we were waiting for you."
"Oh, good. I can't sit here all night. If you guys are good to go, I'll take off." "Wait, what's that?"
"What's what?"
"I think I saw a phone in that basket."
He shines his flashlight on the laundry basket on the front stoop. I walk up to the basket. An iPhone is sitting on top of it. I pick it up and it looks like Rebecca's old iPhone 4. It's my daughter's old phone. I'll just take it with us. I carry the basket down to my car and put it in the back seat. Just as I'm walking away, it rings. Incoming call from V's landline. I realize it's V's phone. I pick it up and answer. "Hello?" Click. I look at the front. There's a text from Paul number 2 on the lock screen. "Is he gone yet?" Yep. It's her phone. "Wait, officer, I was wrong. It's Miss Crow's phone. Could you return it to her?" He takes it from me and returns it to V at the front door and walks back down to us.
"Okay, you are still good to go. I'm gonna go now."
"If you could, swing by again in 15 to 20 minutes. If we're still here, you might want to pull in and make sure we're still okay."
"Sounds good. You two take care now."
Not 5 minutes after he pulls out, and while we're still loading stuff, V again pops out of the front door, phone glued to her ear.
"Is the officer still here?"
"No."
"Get him back now."
"Why?"
"I want him back. Get him."
And back inside she goes. I'm briefly tempted to tell her, if you want the cop back, you call for him. But that little voice in my head says, you call. So I did redial Crowsville's finest and request that Officer Johnson, to return to the address. Again, Sam and I assume our waiting positions at the front of the truck. This is why I didn't want Rebecca here tonight.
"Good call,"
Sam said. A few minutes later, Officer Johnson arrives. "Hey, Officer Johnson, long time no see." He grins at me. "She came out the front door just after you left, asking for the police to be called.
I'll go see what she wants.
He goes up there and V hands him her phone. He talks for a few minutes, hangs up the phone, continues to speak with V for 20 more seconds, and then returns to us. I look at him, quizzically.
No worries, guys. You're still good to go, but I'm gonna stay here until you're done.
I continue to give him the raised eyebrow.
She wanted to accuse you of trying to steal her phone, but I pointed out to her that I was the one to notice it in the basket that you hadn't touched yet, and that you were the one to ask me to return it to her. Her boyfriend asked if you could be made to wait until Sunday, but I told him no. They got 3 more things to load and then they're out of here. Just finish up, guys. We all want to go home where it's warm.
We finished up and we all shook hands and got out of there, having successfully avoided being framed by my ex-wife because we were lucky enough that the cop noticed the phone. So all things considered, from the start to the very end, am I the jerk for how things played out? Let's break this down from the beginning. Part 1 and then we'll go to part 2. First off, it's sad that he had to live through this entire cheating while knowing it was happening. The way it's explained is a little bit strange because I can't understand why, if he already knew the cheating was about to happen, why he wouldn't have intervened or tried to be separated before it happened, unless he thought it would help him in the custody battle in the future and in the divorce. It sounds like that's sort of implicit in what he's saying here, but he's not saying it directly. And as we see how things turn out later on in the story, that isn't exactly how it plays out. Which begs the question again, why put yourself through that? He specifically says, I left her the weekend after their hotel stay. She would spend the days with him and come home for the afternoon and evening without a shred of guilt showing in her actions. Having to live through that doesn't seem worth it just to get a couple extra private eye pictures of them leaving the hotel and all the other places that they took pictures of them. But maybe he thought it was worth it. And about the whole situation about entering her apartment and V saying that she didn't give him permission, it is funny that she thinks that if she deletes a text message on her end, it'll be deleted on his end, because that's obviously not how it works. But if that was such a crucial thing he was counting on, why wouldn't he bring that to court? He told the judge, I would be able to provide the communications where she gave me permission, but I don't have them with me today. What? Wasn't that one of the only things he felt like he had to stand on when he thought that he was going to be discriminated against because he was a male in this custody battle? I guess in the end, nothing really mattered other than the fact that V had ignored the court summons this entire time, and that's what ultimately swayed the judge in the OP's favor. I feel bad for anyone that has to go anything like this on either side. Then in part 2, the OP clearly is on edge because he has set up every precaution he possibly can. He's using some 200 IQ prediction methods to try and figure out what her whole scheme is. He even brings Sam with him so he's not alone with her, so she can't just randomly say something and then it becomes a he said she said situation. It is interesting that both him and Sam had the intuition to call the police right then and there, when from the perspective of the audience it's not exactly obvious why they would do so. They just thought that something was off, and it turns out something was off. At the time they just couldn't figure out what it was, and it ended up being the police officer who saw the phone in the basket to begin with. She was the one that was trying to pin the theft of the phone on them, and she almost got away with it if it wasn't noticed at that point. So let me know if you guys have ever experienced something like this in your own lives, and if so, feel free to submit your own stories via the link in the description. And of course, let me know down below, jerk or not a jerk, and why. My friend's entitled mom tries to force her to have a baby with me, and it goes horribly wrong. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I used to have a female friend I'll call Tia. She was an okay person, but I didn't like her all that much. Tia was a popular girl, and I was just a person who avoided all other human beings. We didn't match and grew apart after this, but I'll always remember her because of her mother, or the poor excuse for one. We were in town and I was in a store buying white chocolate. It has a different texture and taste compared to milk chocolate and doesn't stick to the back of my throat the same. Tia didn't like chocolate, so she was buying a Twinkie. The store we were in had a section dedicated to American sweets. To all of you Americans out there, you've got a very diverse amount of sweets. Seriously, I didn't know that you could get licorice, caramel, or vanilla Dr. Pepper until I saw that section. I'm willing to come overseas to find out what other future regrets you have in store. Anyway, Tia and I were walking out of the shop when her mom comes in. For the sake of the story, I'll mention that I have a unisex face and voice. With the coat that I wear all the time, it's nearly impossible to see if I have honkers or not. My hair is short and my real life name is also unisex. So basically, it's very easy to mistake me for a lad. I think you understand the title a little better now. I'll call the woman Diana. Diana says,
Tia?
This woman was wearing the ugliest brown shirt I have ever seen. If she she slathered herself in poo and deceased cats, it would be a major improvement and less of an eyesore. And this is coming from the girl who goes to stores in a Batman onesie and believes it's fashion. Tia responds saying, "Yes, Mom?"
Why have you been ignoring my texts and my phone calls, Tia?
Tia says, "Mom, I don't want a baby." My eyebrows rocketed from my forehead, punched a hole in the ozone layer, and looped around Mars and came back. I said, "What the heck?" The woman ignores me, but that won't be for long. Tia says, "Babies don't fix broken relationships, Mom."
Tia, I can't have babies and you're my daughter, so you do as I say. There are many girls your age who would be wonderful mothers. In fact, think of it as a little brother or sister.
The woman sounded so hopeful and pleasant that it disturbed me. Other than the fact that she's pushing her daughter to have a baby, the mom continues and says,
My boyfriend loves you though.
Tia responds saying, "He's 34, Mom. He would go to prison if he went anywhere near me." That was the moment when the mother notices me, and the look she has makes me believe I'm looking at the female Hannibal Lecter. I say, "Bollocks."
Hello, you're about my daughter's age, aren't you?
Tia's looking at me with a horrified face.
My boyfriend won't go to prison if you're the daddy.
Nothing has ever been said to me that made me want to poop enough bricks to build a fort to hide from this lady. I say, "I like your approach. Now let's see your departure." I was hopeful that she'd adhere to my advice, but instead, she only looked mildly annoyed.
Listen, you. I will pay you. I'll do anything you ask. Just get me a baby.
I then asked her, "Did you think about adoption?" Not that any adoption center would let her anywhere near an infant, but she said,
No, it must be related to me. You are coming home with me and I am having a baby.
This crazy lady went from 100 to 1,000. I said, "First of all, your daughter is as appealing as Freddy Krueger with frostbite. Secondly, you are crazy. And lastly, I am physically incapable of impregnating anybody. Be like a fart in the wind and disappear." Do I walk away? Nope. I sprint like the Roadrunner has turned man-eater. I ran away. But our tale does not end there. No, it gets even worse. I don't know how, but Diana learned where I lived and decided to come to where I lived. At the time, my mom was at work and my uncle Connor was there. Now that we're older, we don't talk much, but he was once again a witness to my ability to magnetize lunatics to me. There was a knock at the door, and when my uncle goes to open it, expecting my nan, the woman barges in. He's confused and I just want to have a heart attack. The woman was holding on to a terrified Tia. She shoves my uncle onto the couch and then locks us inside of our own house. "It's that crazy bee I was telling you about." Connor, my uncle, says, "What is it with you and these crazy people?" I'd like to know so I can reverse it. I need a vaccine to lunatics if I wish to keep my own safety. Diana, the mother, says,
Do it.
She shoves a crying Tia in front of me and I sit her down. Then the mother says,
There you go.
"Get the heck out of my sister's house."
I don't want you. I want my baby to be cute.
My uncle did not share the same loyalty he did as a young boy, so he abandons me with Diana and her crazy obsession to get a child. I know it's to call the police, but still, I feel betrayed. I tell her, "I would call you the C word, but you have neither the depth nor the warmth. Leave my house." I was not afraid to strike if I had to, especially in the face, since she was trying to do this to her daughter and to me. I can't have kids.
Oh, yes, you will.
She grabs onto my coat. Yes, I wear my coat inside and yanks it off. I am only wearing a small pajama top underneath, and there are 2 feminine lumps on my chest. That's it. I am so angry at this point, I wind up and slug this woman in the shoulder. The rest is a bit of a blur, but my uncle unlocked the door and let the 2 police officers in. Unlike others who got off with a slap on the wrist, this woman got the opposite of that. She won't be getting out of jail until 2049, and I'm more than happy about that. My uncle buys me some more chocolate to try and make me feel better, but even though it's been 3 years, I still don't feel better. better. I don't know what became of Tia, but I want her to be someone nowhere near her family because her mom's boyfriend tried to sue me. I haven't been told what over, but I think it has something to do with emotional trauma or something stupid. I really hope Diana is suffering in jail because that's what she deserves. People, do not demand babies from other people. Just don't. A small update from the future. One of my aunts apparently ran into Tia a couple of months ago. She's living with her dad and has a boyfriend. Good on you, Tia. Nice to hear you aren't totally messed up by your incubation unit of a mother. So, am I the jerk for how far I took this situation with this lady trying to force me to have her child, but technically her grandchild? I think most people at a certain point have seen somebody's parents try to force or pressure their own kids into having kids because they want to have grandchildren. But it sounds like in this situation, this was far beyond the norm. She didn't really want grandchildren. She wanted to have a kid of her own, but she couldn't have kids herself. So she wanted her daughter to have kids and just think of it as her brother or sister so that she could have another kid. That is twisted. If you guys have ever seen 90 Day Fiancé, there's actually a situation like this, but it is not sinister like this situation is. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but basically the idea was the woman could produce the egg, but she couldn't carry the baby all the way through the pregnancy, so she wanted to insert her egg into her daughter and have her daughter give birth to it, but it would technically be her daughter. The 90 Day Fiancé's woman's daughter, even though it would seem like it's her granddaughter. If you've seen the show, you can add some more details, but that's the gist of it. But this lady was totally unhinged. I mean, she's just choosing a random person in a crowd and trying to force them to have a baby with her daughter. Obviously, it's her daughter's friend, but it's still a random choice. Why this friend of your daughter over any of the other ones or any other person in the crowd? That's just sick. And to add to the list of the things that are disturbing here, she's trying to imply that her boyfriend would gladly be the one to impregnate her daughter? What? Then it would obviously just be her daughter's baby that she had with her boyfriend, the mom's boyfriend. Nothing would ever unravel that because that is what that would be. So this is obviously a very weird one, but let me know how you would handle the situation if you were in the position of the OP here, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Don't forget to subscribe to the second channel linked down below in the description, because on that channel you can hear all of my personal stories if you're interested in hearing that. My dying wife asked if I would be okay if she fornicated with her ex one last time. I can't have this tied to my main account, but I really need to say something about it, and I have no one I can tell. My wife has a terminal disease. She is projected to live at most 9 months. I am, of course, destroyed. We've been together for a decade. I don't remember life without her, and I don't know what I'm going to do when she's gone. I've been doing my best to make the last days of her life good and grant whatever wish I can. The doctor said she'd likely need a wheelchair in 4 or 5 months. Then, by month 8, she'll be bedridden for the last few weeks. That's if she doesn't decline faster. Recently, she sat me down and told me that one of the last things she wanted to do was to bang a previous partner of hers. I, of course, was shocked, and I asked why would she want that? She basically thinks that her most physically compatible, satisfying lover was him. She gave a whole monologue about how sometimes doing the deed is just physical and how emotionally fulfilling doing the deed is with me, but it was all nonsense to get to that point. So now I'm left with this. Deny my dying wife a wish for my own ego, or let her do the deed with another man who she felt was better. Honestly, I am so pissed off and betrayed that she's asked this of me. I feel like I'm put in a position where I have to say yes because she's dying. I know what I want to say, but I don't know if that's right. I am so hurt that doing it with an ex was apparently so good that she needs to do it once before she dies. I just hate everything about this. Would I be the jerk for saying no? What should I do? Even her just requesting this has probably permanently changed the way he sees her forever, even after she's gone. I think the only real solution here is to give her the choice. He obviously doesn't want this to happen, so it'll probably just have to come down to asking her to make the decision. Either you stay with me and that's not going to happen, or you choose to leave me and pursue that. Because from his perspective, the alternative is even worse. The way he perceives her will already probably never be the same again, but if she ends up going through with this and he stays with her, depending on the type of person he is, he'll probably be resentful of her all the way up until the day she dies, and then resentful of her memory. There are probably some people that would handle this a lot differently, but it sounds like he is definitely not okay with this at his core. There were a lot of interesting responses to this, one of which kind of says a similar thing where if she wants to be with him, then just have her pick up her stuff and finish the rest of her life with her ex. Other people question whether or not she's currently in contact with her ex, and if she is, then maybe she's just seeking permission from the OP because she's already established some sort of reformed connection with her ex. If that's the case, that would be very sad because she's just basically already doing what she wants to do. She just wants to get approval from him so she can eliminate her guilt. The last response I'll share with you is somebody that tried to flip this on its head, saying, if her dying wish was to murder someone, would we grant that wish? How about go on a safari and hunt an endangered animal, or to rob a bank? Dying wishes aren't a free pass to terrible behavior. If she's committed to this course of action, then the relationship is over and she can die alone in a hospice with her boyfriend, her ex-boyfriend. The original poster seems completely shocked by her behavior though. If this is out of character for a loving, honest partner, it makes me wonder if the disease is affecting her cognitive abilities. That's the only pass I would give her in this situation. So if the love of your life asked you this right before they died, how would you respond to them? Let me know your thoughts down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Today my wife met my girlfriend. I'm a 32-year-old male and I am a widow. My wife passed away from pancreatic cancer 5 years ago. She was forced to leave behind our 2 kids, R, who's a 10-year-old boy, and H, who's a 7-year-old boy. My wife was the absolute light of my life. We were high school sweethearts, went to the same college, and got married after graduation. We were inseparable. Every day I fell more in love with her. It was like my heart was living outside my body. When she passed, the amount of pain that I was in was indescribable. I prayed to go to sleep and not wake up just so I could see her one last time. I contemplated meeting her, but every time I was ready, my kids would look at me. They had her face, her personality, her DNA. I couldn't leave them. They were all I had of her. It took years before I was able to normally function again. I even quit my job and lived off savings and her life insurance for about a year. I was half the dad I used to be and only a fraction of my former self. 2 years after her passing, I decided enough was enough and I kicked myself into gear. I found a job in a different city, closer to my parents. I packed my kids up and I moved. Life was hard, but I kept chugging along and eventually I found some joy. A year after moving, I took a business trip to New York where I met my current girlfriend, Elle. While I acknowledged there was chemistry, I told her I was already married and she understood. However, a few months later, I had to go back to New York where we met up again. I let my guard down for the first time around her. Before I knew it, she was putting in a transfer from my home branch and moving to my city. I fell in love with her and asked her out a year ago next month. My kids adore her, and she reminded them that she will never take their mom's place. They lovingly call her Mama L. Today was the anniversary of my wife's passing, an extremely hard day for all of us. This morning I walked into the living room to find Elle and my kids all waiting for me. They were dressed in their church clothes with goofy smiles on their faces and bouquets in hand. Apparently, Elle came up with the idea of a picnic in my wife's grave, an idea that the boys loved as they enjoy going to see their mom. While I was sleeping, they prepared food and flowers, then insisted on wearing their best clothes. I'll admit that I cried at the sight of them. I don't know how I got this lucky twice in a row. I wanted my wife to meet this amazing woman, so I asked Elle to come along and she did. The day that I dread every year turned out to be a humbling reminder of the reason why I stayed on this planet. To my lovely wife, you can never be replaced, but she is good to me, and she takes care of our kids like you would. Thank you for sending her to me. Update from the future. I already had a profound appreciation for my girlfriend before I had made that post, but the comments gave me an entirely new perspective. The night after I made that post, I took my girlfriend out to dinner, and I can't explain it, but the light I was viewing her in was different. Everything she did that night gave me butterflies. She was showing me pictures that she took at the aquarium with my oldest, and I couldn't stop staring at her. In that moment, I came to the conclusion that I was going to propose a lot sooner than I expected. A few days later, I went ring shopping with her mom, who was very excited, and we found the perfect ring. I then made a reservation at her favorite restaurant for last Friday and set the big day in motion. Long story short, I'm getting married again. As some of you said, promotions can wait. Though after looking at her wedding ideas, I may need a promotion to financially recover. I'm excited to start this journey with her and my amazing kids, and as I've said before, I am so lucky. I hope you can all find your own L, and if not, what would you do? This was a lot more wholesome than I expected, especially with that first sentence, today my wife met my girlfriend. Usually when the first sentence is something like that, it's going to lead to a pretty rocky story, but that wasn't the case here at all. In fact, it was the opposite. It sounds like the OP finally found a source of light, some sort of stability in his life after years of grieving. It's worth pointing out that a year after moving, so his wife had already passed away, he took a business trip to New York where he met Elle. But when he was there, he told her that he was already married. So even though she had passed away, he was still waiting to date other people because he still saw himself as being married. I don't know if most people would do that, but it was obviously the right choice because he was still grieving during this time. And even if it wasn't from the perspective of having loyalty to his deceased wife, he probably just wasn't mentally ready to get into another relationship, and that was a more fair decision for Elle. So let me know what you think of this story down below. An entitled mother comes into our shop and wants me to give her a 130 euro mechanical keyboard for free because her son is a professional gamer. That's her reasoning. When I said no, that's when things started getting wild. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. So I'll tell a little backstory. In Finland, we have this thing called TET, T-E-T, which is like a work experience thing. You do it while you're in the 8th grade and it lasts a week. I was 14 and I had taken a job in a tech store. It was good. I am somewhat nerdy and I know about technology and computers. And this is all translated from the Finnish conversation, the argument. So my English might have some mistakes. So I had been working there for a few days and it was Thursday around 2 p.m. I had about an hour of work time since the TET rule said that the work time was 6 hours. I was behind a cash register desk filling the cabinets with some phones that had arrived in the shipment that day. Then the entitled mother and the entitled esports kid entered. The store manager was in the storage. The mom was in her 40s and the kid was about 11 to 13 years old. I say, "Hello, welcome to the tech store. How can I help you?"
Good afternoon. My son is looking for a keyboard.
I pointed to my left where the gaming products were and there were mostly Razer products available. The others were sold out and the store didn't have much of the accessories. On that shelf, feel free to look around.
Thanks.
The entitled mother and the entitled esports kid walked over and I kept on filling the cabinet. I heard some discussion from behind me, but I didn't bother to listen. Sometime later, I was done and I looked over to them. They were looking at the prices and thinking about it. I said, "Need some help?"
Yeah, I don't understand the difference between this black Ultimate Chroma and this Ornata Chroma. They look alike. Can you please tell me the difference?
The entitled esports kid chimed in and said,
Mom, the Black Widow is better. It's mechanical like I told you.
I told them, "Your son is right. The difference is that the Black Widow is mechanical and has a faster response time than the Ornata, which is mechanical. The Black Widow was also more expensive, but that is logical since it was mechanical." The entitled mother looked over to the entitled kid who was then smiling.
We'll take this one then.
The entitled mother walked to the register and I scanned the barcode. The keyboard was 129 euros. "All right, ma'am, that will be 129 euros.
What do you mean? 130 euros for a piece of plastic? What the heck?
Calm down, ma'am. It's the normal price.
My son plays competitively. He needs this.
Really? What does he play? The entitled esports kid looked at me and said,
I play CSGO in a professional team.
I just looked at him, holding my laughter. This kid had just told me that he plays a K16 game professionally. It was hilarious. K16 is the equivalent of the ESRB rating, 14. I respond back sarcastically saying, "Oh really? What is the team name?" The kid smiled more. His smile kind of looked like a troll face.
Our team is called Killer Bee Esports.
That's the name translated, of course. I just burst into laughter. This kid had just told me of a group that I didn't know of. Then while laughing, I said, "Hold on, I'll check." I looked up this team on my phone. I found a Steam group and I looked at it. One of the members was called Gay Swede Wiener 69. I was laughing so hard because the kid was so serious about being professional. I'm sorry, kid, but this gaming group is far from professional. Even if you were professionals, I couldn't give you this keyboard for free since you aren't sponsored by us. This store was a part of a chain. The mom was looking at me very angry, and then she said,
"And what exactly are you laughing at? He is a professional gamer. He is good. I have watched him play. We need to get this for free. You are so rude, young man."
"Yeah, I'm sorry, but he's not a professional. I see no awards or anything to reference any sort of esports activity." The entitled esports kid said,
I used to play for the 3D Max Juniors.
"That doesn't exist and isn't even Finnish." I just laughed even harder. I couldn't help it. This kid was so bad at lying. Are you kidding me? Look at you. You're not old enough to play CSGO. Not professionally.
He's underage. That's your best argument. How old are you?
I'm 14.
You are 14 and you call my son underage? Shame on you.
It's my TET week, so it's part-time. The entitled mother was looking at her son with a weird smile, and the kid smiled back. She turned to me and said,
Well, I'll make a compromise. I will pay the full price.
I was getting suspicious from the tone of her voice, which had turned to a kind and soft voice, so I said, And
I get those headphones from the shelf.
Pointing to a pair of Razer Kraken 7.1S's, which are about 110 euros themselves,
For free.
I looked at her with an annoyed gaze and stayed quiet for a moment. Are you kidding me? You're asking for a keyboard and a headset for the price of one? I explained to her that we have some bundles sometimes, but you can't just make one out of thin air. She just looked at me, annoyed.
Let me speak to your manager.
Okay. I point to the security cameras and say, don't think of trying to leave. You have the cameras watching you. I walk into the warehouse and I call for the store manager, Pekka, to come and help me with a customer. Surprisingly, the entitled mother and the esports entitled kid hadn't left.
Hello, ma'am. I'm Pekka. What seems to be the problem?
Your part-time employee is rude to me and makes fun of my son.
That's not entirely true. She claimed her son is a professional gamer in a team and they are trying to get the equipment for free.
Ma'am, is this true?
No, he's lying.
The manager was just there looking at the angry mom, her kid, and me.
That's fine, ma'am. I'll check the camera recordings.
He said that and went into the security room, and sometime later he came out.
Sure, ma'am. I have to ask you to pay for the keyboard and leave.
What the frick? He is rude to me and my son. We need these for free. My son is traumatized after your behavior.
Ma'am, the other option is for you not to pay and leave without the keyboard.
The entitled mother just looked at him and hesitantly paid for the keyboard and was about to leave until she yelled from the door.
You lost a customer for life. I am not coming back here ever again.
Despite her actions, my work experience went well. I got good points for the work, and sometimes when I go into the store, I talk with Pekka about the pro player kid and we have a laugh. Surprisingly, the entitled mother nor the esports kid never visited the store ever again. So, was I the jerk for how I handled the situation? It obviously didn't help the situation that he burst out laughing because this kid said he was on a professional team for CSGO, but he wanted to call him out, so he did. It's just hilarious that the entitled mom here thought that she was making a compromise by agreeing to pay the full price only if they gave her the full 110 euro headphones as well. Maybe she just thought that nobody would ever want this stuff, so I'll take it off your hands. Kind of like the approach that some people go into garage sales with, where they say, hey, you have it out here for sale, you don't want it, so I'll take it off your hands if you just give it all to me for this price. But it's strange that she would do that in a retail shop, in a tech store, where normally you wouldn't bargain for anything if it's a new product. And one of the main reasons for that is because the person who's selling it to you has no say of whether or not they can do that, and also they don't make the money off the sale directly, so it doesn't really matter to them if the sale actually happens or not, unless there's commission involved. But the best rationale of all is, my son is a professional, therefore you should give it to him for free. Yeah, that works in all industries that have professionals in them. So let me know how you would handle this if you were the worker in this situation, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. My former co-workers are telling me that my old boss talks to them about, quote, all the issues that I'm having. I found out that my therapist is my old boss's husband. I started seeing a therapist a couple of months ago. Nothing wild, just general depression, winter weather getting to me, etc. It's been very helpful until recently. In the last few days, two of my old coworkers called me to say that my old boss was saying things like, OP basically hates herself now. I heard she's not doing well, really depressed. These were phone calls, and I didn't record anything because it was so unexpected. My old boss fired me in June of 2017. We didn't get along. General underperformance, no misconduct, just obviously didn't leave on great terms. At first, I thought it might be a friend of mine divulging things to another friend in the industry, but then after looking up said old boss, I see that her husband is my my therapist. A very common last name, so I never realized they were related. I realize this is obviously problematic with a therapist, but I'm not sure what to do about it. He practices out of a leased single office space, so there's no overarching practice/management/administration to report to. I also don't know if what my old boss is saying is getting into legal issues or if it's just, well, rude. I still live in the same city and work the same type of job in a rather small/close-knit industry. So on one hand, I'm worried about word traveling around our small community, but on the other hand, I'm worried about bad blood if I make too much of a fuss. Please help. A small edit from the future, I'm now feeling reasonably confident about where to start with a therapist. Thank you. However, I feel completely lost about what to do about my old boss. Contact HR and the old employer? Hope it just dies down? At this point, I have no proof that I could show. Just saying I got phone calls, and I don't really want to pit my old coworkers against their boss if that can be avoided. Jumping into the future, there is an update. So my old boss was telling my old team that I was having a ton of issues. I found out my therapist is her husband, but I didn't know how she was finding this out / to what degree each person was doing bad stuff. That's what happened so far. The new development summary is there's still a lot of slow / bureaucratic stuff going on, but the most satisfying news is that my therapist is no longer practicing. I even saw the space that he practiced out of listed for sale on a real estate website while doing my own house hunting. The therapist was chatting about a client, me, to his wife, my old boss, that it seemed he didn't really know was his wife's old employee. Large company, closely knit, but not minuscule industry. I have a very peculiar family dynamic, so I think he talked about that. However, enough bits and pieces of identifying information came up that she suspected it was me. Unbeknownst to him, she found my paper records in his office and dug through them. Then thought it was a great idea to tell my old coworkers that I was depressed and had family issues. Neat. One of my coworkers put in her 2 weeks because of a relocating spouse shortly after, then agreed to write a formal statement of what she had heard, which also helped a lot. Understandably, no one else was willing to because the company's already laid off so many people in the last year. Resolution in progress. The therapist seems to be less in the wrong than I thought he was, though still in the wrong. The old boss is still awful. The therapist is likely to receive some sort of reprimanding for both talking to his wife about me in that level of detail, as well as insecure record keeping. I don't know if he'll practice ever again. So am I the jerk for how things turned out? The therapist might actually end up losing his entire career over this, it sounds like. And if that ends up happening, I can't imagine there's not going to be some sort of resentment between him and his wife, because he's probably going to see it as her being careless and just telling random people things that he told her in private. That's the kind of thing that can lead to a divorce. But all of that aside, talking about it in the first place is a huge violation of privacy. The OP here is obviously going here to say something in private to someone that she is paying for a service, and then he's going out and telling other people. And even if that usually leads to nothing, in this case it led to something because the wife was able to tell who he was talking about based on some of the details. And she didn't even leave it at that. She actually went into his files, confirmed that it was about the OP, and then told everybody. So the therapist violated the OP's privacy by talking about it in the first place. The wife violated the therapist's privacy by going through all of his things. It's an awful situation where against your will, all these other people know your personal business. I know for most people that would make them pretty mad. But if this was you in this situation, how would you handle it? Let me know down below in jerk or not a jerk and why. My coworker adopted a kid from the Ukraine a couple of years ago. Now she's going around asking us to adopt him and writing about giving him away on Facebook. So my coworker is kind of a weirdo. I'll call her Mary for the sake of this post. Her and her husband are one of those people that have a ton of adopted kids, 8 so far, and are super religious, to each his own. Mary enjoys telling everyone at work her business, so when she decided to adopt a kid from the Ukraine, everyone heard about it. She went with an older kid because it was easier for her and her husband, she says. This was 2 years ago. Mary has asked me to babysit the boy a couple of times. I'll call him Tony, and it's never been a problem because I like kids. I didn't see any glaring problems besides Mary's constant dramatics about how awful the kid was, and he seemed to like being over. It's just me and my boyfriend here, and our place is small but clean and really well kept. Mary's house is disgusting, for lack of a better word. Mary would constantly harp about how much Tony liked it at our house, but I just chalked it up to the kid having a good time. Lately, Mary has been in work work talking to anyone that'll listen about how awful Tony is, how horrible he is to the other kids, and how she is going to get rid of him. She sent out a mass email to everyone in our department asking if someone wanted to take her kid from her. She calls it rehoming and that it's okay. I logged onto Facebook today and same story. She has pictures of Tony posted to her timeline advertising him for readoption and to contact her if interested. I haven't replied to her email yet and I haven't commented on her post, but I'm this close to ripping into her for what she's doing. She's crossed the line from weird into full-blown psycho. Should I call CPS? I called the police just now and they sounded completely confused on what to do. They agreed to do a welfare check. The post is still up. Is this really legal? I don't know much about adoption and a quick search for rehoming gets me mostly results about animals. Does anyone have any advice? Quick edit. Poop has hit the fan. There is mass insanity right now, but I'll have an update for everyone tonight. Most importantly, the kids are safe. Update from the future. Now that the dust has settled a bit, I'm honestly kind of overwhelmed by the number of people that went to huge lengths to tell me about just how serious this situation was/is, deep dived on resources, etc. I got private messages from people who worked for local and state governments and private agencies that were outside of my state but offered their contacts. I had people that spoke Russian and Ukrainian offering up help to contact the Ukrainian embassy and offered me contact information from embassy departments. People even contacted us offering money for Tony's immediate needs in the event that we decided to take him in. I am sincerely touched by the genuine concern all of you had for Tony and his siblings. I hope one day I can tell Tony that despite everything that's happened, there's people out there like you guys that care about him. The information you guys gave us helped us act fast and got the ball rolling on the situation faster than me and my boyfriend would have figured out alone. I talked with the cops about the situation and honestly, they were just as confused as I was. The person I talked to on the phone was just as stumped, but he agreed that at a minimum, they did need to do a welfare check. I've had experiences with welfare checks before, and I had the nagging feeling that something just wouldn't go right. Someone private messaged me the priority line for my state's CPS hotline. I got someone on the phone right away, and as soon as I mentioned that trafficking could be going on and that she was advertising the kid on Facebook, it was a public post here too, people, they acted with a quickness. I gave them all the information I had on Mary and Tony and all the information I had from Mary about Tony's adoption. The person I spoke to right away said that she suspected that the adoption might not even be legal. I was floored. I emailed all the screenshots I had to the person I spoke with and asked for a follow-up if that was at all possible. I said that myself and my boyfriend were willing to take Tony on a temporary basis if necessary, but the CPS representative said that that likely wasn't possible. Then the waiting game began. Last night was probably the most stressful night I've ever had. Hell at one point. I was ready to drive out to Mary's house myself but was stopped by my boyfriend. It was tough. The cops followed up with us at approximately 2 a.m. Note that I haven't heard from CPS. The officer I spoke with was very cautious and limited in what he said, but he told me that CPS arrived at the home shortly after he did. In not so many words, he implied that Mary had been talking to someone about meeting Tony the very next day and that CPS's suspicions were confirmed. Tony's adoption was not legal. Tony was rehomed to Mary and her husband from another state where placement needs to be approved by a judge. He didn't elaborate further except to say that other issues came to light and all of the children were removed from the home for their own safety. He didn't say how long they were there, but said it was a long time. I was asked to drop off all emails and printouts to the station in the morning, and I agreed. My boyfriend and I wanted to make doubly sure that all of our bases were checked, so I called our local FBI office who said they lacked jurisdiction in the matter but would be writing up a complaint and referring the issue to the State Department. We called the Ukrainian embassy and made a detailed complaint, and I included the contact information I had for the officer from the department. That's when it really hit the fan. The moment I went into work to print out the email. Our company is pretty small and the company owner, I'll call her Big Ange because of her resemblance to the Mob Wives lady, she had gotten wind of Mary's email. Big Ange was furious and waiting at Mary's desk to see if she would show up for work. My friend reported that Big Ange waited from 7:15 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. and that Mary came to work with a sob story about how her kids were being unfairly taken away. Mary wanted time off from work to clear her name and devote herself to reclaiming her family from this misunderstanding. I wasn't there to witness this, but Big Ange, who has 6 kids herself, apparently ripped Mary a new one. Mary has been dismissed, and rumor has it that Big Ange may or may not allow her to claim unemployment. My head is honestly still spinning from everything that has happened. The past 24 hours have been insanity. I am so grateful that the system worked as quickly as it did. I only hope there's a long-term solution to this problem and that Mary doesn't get to reclaim her kids. My heart is breaking for Tony and the other kids right now. I don't know what is happening in Mary's house that made them get removed that night, but I'm going to sleep better knowing that they aren't with psycho Mary and her husband, at least not for a while. What the future holds for Tony and the other kids, especially because Tony's adoption was apparently illegal, makes me sick, but I'm going to wish for the best. What should I do? I think that is the biggest question in the short term. What is it that they found in the house that night that made them act so urgently that they got all the kids to safety right away? We already know that, as the OP describes here, Mary's house is disgusting, so it could be something as simple as that. The cops walked in and said, "These are unlivable conditions, this is disgusting in here," and took all of them out of there. Or maybe it was something much darker. We really don't know. I'm sure a lot of you guys have theories on what it could be, so let me know down below what you think it might be. But this is just a strange situation. I've never heard of somebody adopting a kid, not fostering them, but adopting them. I'm sure this does happen, but it probably doesn't happen on Facebook. It probably happens through some sort of official means where you're not just handing them off to a random person on your Facebook. How could that have even worked anyway? Even if they did say yes, I doubt it's like signing over a pink slip to a car and saying, okay, you own this car now, you own this person now. There's got to be a lot more red tape than that. But maybe she was just waiting until he turned of age and then it would all fade away and everything that happened before wouldn't matter. It's just such a weird thought process. But let me know how you see the situation down below, and what advice would you offer?
My boss went into retirement and replaced himself with his evil son. His son tried making moves on me, tried to go out with me, tried to sleep with me, and then later when I wouldn't, tried to fire me. This is the story of how I got my revenge, got a huge payday, and destroyed this business. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. First, some background. A bit over 6 months prior to the start of this story, we had a change up at the company that I worked for. The old owner was a great guy and was retiring, so he was handing off the company to his son, a real jerk just out of business school type. The son, with the mentality that this company was now his, went about restructuring, namely reassigning teams to different projects and leaving those that remained in their old positions to pick up double, if not triple, the workload. He did all of this in the name of saving a little bit of money. Unfortunately, my department, safety and engineering, of which I was the team lead, was not spared from this effort. In the end, I had it out with the boss and the department head, ultimately costing the company 3 months of my entire department working 80+ hour weeks and forcing a huge year-end bonus to be paid out to us. Unfortunately, after my initial meeting with the new boss, i.e. the son, he took a liking to me in a really bad way. Essentially, he really liked me and wanted to go out with me or sleep with me, however you want to put it. He even enlisted his friends and secretaries to help him. It went on for months. It was just blatant harassment. They even made comments about me losing my late husband, that I should get back on the horse, so to speak. I kept everything, every email, every voicemail, and I went to my best friend who happens to be a really good lawyer, a contract lawyer to be exact. So not exactly their area of expertise, but they knew enough to help. This friend drafted a letter to the boss, essentially a stop or we're going to start a big case over this kind of thing. And yeah, everything stopped. However, I was then moved from working in office to a work from home arrangement. I knew that was coming. They were going to do their best to get rid of me, so I started documenting everything. But as luck would happen, I received an email chain from the bosses. A good friend of mine in the office who was in the email chain added me to the CC list, and wouldn't you know it, it was a back and forth communication of them discussing how they would get rid of me and pin the blame on me. The email chain was disgusting. Just disgusting. They hated me so badly and wanted me gone. But because of my contract, they would have to buy me out. But being the cheapskates that they are, you know they wanted me gone for free. So the company bosses started a campaign to try and torment me. They first tried to say that because now I work from home, they were required to install cameras in my home office to make sure that I was being productive. Luckily, that did not work. You gotta love contracts. They also tried assigning an impossible workload to
me, but luckily my team and I were almost like family and they picked up the slack. After 3 months of this, I get an email and a phone call from the HR department saying that I was getting laid off indefinitely because there was just no work for me. This was complete nonsense given that we had several dozen projects we were working on. As a side note, in Ontario there is no such thing as a layoff. In the court's eyes, being laid off is considered an active dismissal, which is essentially the same as being fired. After this conversation with HR, I call my lawyer friend almost in tears, just shouting, "Look at what they're doing to me, help." She calms me down and tells me, "This is such a good thing. We have so much evidence against them." I had already forwarded and printed off everything that was sent to me, and it was lucky I did because a scant few hours after I was laid off, my computer was remotely wiped clean. Everything was gone, just leaving a blank desktop. When I called the HR department to get copies of all my filed complaints, what do you know? Everything was gone. In their place was a bunch of nonsense reprimands that never happened, that I never signed or saw, dating months and months back, and all signed by the new boss despite the fact that they were dated before he ever took control of the company. It was clear they were total nonsense, but I got copies of everything to add to my stack of records. I texted all my old colleagues to let them know what was happening and that I am basically gone. Like I said earlier, we were like family, and with me on the way out, they started looking for better employment. Not only that, but they contacted all their friends who worked for the company to do the same. I was laid off on a Monday, and on Thursday I walked into the office with my employment lawyer. I swear the main secretary was on the phone to security the second she saw me walk in, and they were at the door in a matter of minutes. My lawyer simply handed her a legal document, a summons to meet for a mediation at his office on the next Friday. During the following week, I received so many calls and text messages from the bosses, friends, secretaries, and people I knew in the office to just be friendly with the owner, to just drop it, and that they wanted to bring me back and forget about everything. Like hell, I was going back to such a hostile work environment. Friday finally comes, and into my lawyer's office, my former boss walks in with a squad of 4 lawyers to settle the matter. Right off the bat, he offers me 3-month severance to end all of this because I didn't have any evidence to rebut the fake paperwork they had on file. At this point, my lawyer starts to bring out all the paperwork we had, namely copies of every complaint I had ever filed, which were all signed by the bosses, HR, and myself. Luckily for our case, I had made sure to take a copy of each complaint when it was written up. They didn't think I had anything. Oh boy, were they wrong. My lawyer made the case in court that it would be obvious that all the paperwork they had on their end were forgeries. Nothing was signed by me. And he pointed out that there were dates with the boss's signature where he wasn't even in the country, let alone working for the company yet. At that point, the boss and his lawyers went to speak privately. After about half an hour, they came back with a much better offer, a full year's salary. But my lawyer responded with, "No, we'll just go with what the contract says, plus go for damages in court." Given the recent changeover at the company, the lawyers seemed to know that they couldn't afford this going to court, not to mention that it would be so bad for the company's reputation. So they basically rolled over and asked, "What do you want?" We demanded 5 years salary plus the average bonus I would have made for each year, plus all the legal fees paid. It was a big win, but it didn't end there. I got a taste of blood and I wanted more. I made phone calls to several companies where I had contacts and found jobs for every member of my team and several members of other teams. By the end of the week, the company lost 10 of its most talented people. Not to mention, most of those people had friends and colleagues that ended up following them to their new employers. The fallout was pretty bad. Before all of this, they had their pick of the litter when new university students graduated. But now, because they had lost almost all their senior people, they had no one to mentor new employees. Plus, word got out fast how they treat workers like crap, so no one with any talent would even think of getting near the company. As of today, the company is just a shell of its former self. It's still big, but it bleeds money. They also now have a problem with permanent staffing and are paying out the nose to hire subcontractors. Let's just say they don't make money like they used to. In fact, they have not started any new projects in something like 9 months. If something isn't done on the side of the management to improve things fast, they will likely be going bankrupt in the very near future. So, am I the jerk for essentially destroying this company and getting 5 years of salary as a payout to me because the new owner kept making his advances on me? So from the sounds of it, this son obviously had no idea how to run a business. He probably watched this business being run from the sidelines his entire life, but never actually learned how to run the business. As if his dad was just a dumb guy that didn't see all these obvious methods to increase the bottom line, but all of those methods, at least from this example, ended up hurting the company in the long run. It's a very short-sighted way of thinking, and he probably thought he was really smart for doing it, but then in the end, he ended up losing more money because he forced that entire department to work 80-plus hour weeks, which meant that a huge year-end bonus had to be paid out to them. So in the end, was it worth doing that? Probably not, and there was probably a reason why it was done the way that it was before. But when it comes to the whole attack on the OP here, that's not even the guy trying to be business savvy. That's just some weird mental power trip type of thing, because he probably thinks I'm the boss now, so therefore you'll date me because I like you. It kind of makes me think of the guard in prison experiment where everyone just ends up assuming their roles, and this is the role that he became, and immediately started taking advantage of the power that he had. But luckily the OP understood that immediately and started defending herself, putting up these barriers and collecting all the evidence she needed in the event that things would go south like they eventually ended up going. And she really did go for it, getting the 5 years of salary, and that's after the lawyer's fee is already taken care of. Wasn't even enough for the revenge. She went even further than that. I think most people probably couldn't even fathom a reality where you got paid a salary for 5 years and you didn't have to go to work. I think for almost everyone that would be life-changing. You could do so many things you always wanted to do during that time. But if you ended up getting that yourself, let me know how you would spend your 5 years. And also, do you think the OP was justified, jerk, or not a jerk, and why? Don't forget to subscribe to the second channel linked down below where you can hear all of my personal stories if you're interested in that. I do reviews on YouTube. I received a cease and desist after the publisher reached out for ways to improve. Hello, now I am not some big reviewer. I barely have 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I do it more as a hobby and not anywhere near a job. Recently, I posted a review about a newly released game. It was very critical on a lot of points in the game, but nowhere was I saying anything that was a lie. For some crazy reason, this video received a massive influx of views compared to my normal 8 to 13,000 views. This one received over 1.6 million views. The publisher reached out to me and wanted some of my personal opinions on how to improve the game and what they could do to make it more enjoyable. I was ecstatic and extremely happy that the company wanted my opinion of all people on what to improve or to change. I was assuming they reached out to a lot of people to get a pool of ideas and maybe hopefully implement them and improve the game. Towards the end of our emails, they asked for my name and address to mail out some swag for my time and effort in the emails. I sent probably several pages of ideas and issues, etc. So I thought, cool, a poster or something would be nice. Today I received a certified letter that contains a cease and desist about the game, claiming if I continue to spread false information and affect sales, I will be sued. It also demanded that I remove the review immediately. I've privated the video but have yet to actually delete it. What can I do here? Are my opinions on a game not protected, or can I actually be sued for this? A small edit from the future. I will not be making the video public again until I have more solid information. I will also not be making a follow-up video as I do not want to poke a bear. I cannot afford an attorney to fight even a frivolous lawsuit. My state of Colorado does not have anti-SLAAP laws. I've emailed EFF and a few other attorneys who specialize in the industry and hope to hear back. I'm also not going to link my YouTube channel. I'm not here for subs or views, just for advice. Jumping into the future, there is an update. So it's been an interesting 2 months after my post. I started contacting a few attorneys locally and eventually had to call the state bar for a referral because of the type of possible laws not a lot of people handle, since most lawyers out here do family or criminal law. I finally found an attorney that understood what I was talking about and wanted a link to the post and agreed with the majority of the top advice that I received. He accepted a small retainer of $250 to respond to the cease and desist that I received and a few possible future letters/calls. He responded asking them exactly what statements I made that were false and requested exact times in the videos that the statements were made. Since I previously privated the video, we had to give them a different link. He also outlined what will happen should they continue stating that during discovery. He will be requesting all communication between QA, playtesting, developers, and management to see if they were aware of any of these bugs/issues that may compromise a customer's experience while playing. It also included a paragraph basically calling them out for reaching out to me and lying about swag and wanting feedback to get my information to send me a cease and desist instead of going through the proper legal channels to obtain this, and the fact that I still have yet to receive any swag shows that this is clearly the case. Also included that they need to preserve all the emails they sent to other reviewers because it's of interest in the possible upcoming legal action. He also requested that they preserve all sorts of other communication between QA, developers, etc. So after he had confirmed receipt of the letter, we waited and waited. Nothing for about a month, but then I received 3 large boxes containing games, posters, statues, a custom PS4 limited edition PlayStation console, bobbleheads, Funko Pops, and just every piece of swag I think they have for their 3 or 4 games, and a letter saying, "Sorry it took so long for us to get this swag out to you." My attorney then sent out another letter asking about the status and their position on the cease and desist, and we received a letter back with only a few sentences basically saying that they made a mistake and we can expect no further correspondence on the matter and that the video can be reinstated if we so wish. He then sent out another letter asking about the lost ad revenue due to me having to private the video since they admitted that it was a mistake. They sent out a check for $500 and some papers that I needed to sign basically saying that the issue is over and I won't sue them. Thank you to everyone for all your advice. I didn't get sued, and after it all, I came out ahead. I'm still not going to link my channel or the video or name the company in question, but thanks for all your help. So, who was the jerk and how would you have handled this? It's sad that this company probably never would have dropped this whole situation or suddenly remembered to send all this swag if the guy didn't get the lawyer involved. Stories like these are what make people always so trigger happy to lawyer up the first chance they get. Because if it happened to this OP, then it's probably happened to other reviewers out there. And this company was just getting away with it. If you really give them the benefit of the doubt, it could have been somebody within the company that went rogue and just kind of sent this off without getting it approved from anyone else in the company. Sometimes it's hard to know if what you're receiving from a company actually represents what the whole company thinks or it's just that person. As soon as they got this letter from the lawyer, they probably realized they were immediately in the wrong. And then not only did they ultimately say you could put the video back up, they paid for the money lost in the process, gave him all the swag you could want and this limited edition PlayStation, and just wanted to be done with it. So let me know how you would have handled the situation if you were the YouTube reviewer yourself, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. My dad's girlfriend is trying to get rid of me. I'm a 15-year-old girl, and my dad, who's 43, has a girlfriend that is trying to get rid of me. My mom passed away 5 years ago, and I think of her every day. My dad went through a really bad depression, and I had to take care of myself, basically. During the Christmas holidays, my dad told me that he had been seeing someone for a while. I noticed he was happier, and I guess I was happy for him. I didn't want him to be lonely forever, but I did feel like my mom was being erased completely. He never wanted to talk about her, and he got rid of all pictures with her in them. He said that his girlfriend will be spending Christmas with us and then moving in. I wasn't happy at all. I don't even know her, but I didn't say anything. I met her on Christmas, and usually my dad and I put the star on the tree that day. We would put the star on the tree and watch The Grinch. It's our tradition, and we kept it even when we were grieving my mom. It's the only tradition from when she was with us that we actually kept. When his girlfriend came over, he put the star on with her while I was in the bathroom. Also, we didn't watch The Grinch because she hates it. I know I sound spoiled and childish, but I was so angry. We've been doing this my whole life, and she just came in and destroyed it. The whole night, she didn't even bother to get to know me at all. She was all over my dad and pretty much ignored me. I told my dad about how upset I was about our tradition, and he said I should grow up and that things change. I didn't like her because she gave me a bad feeling, so I never got close to her. She complained to my dad about it, and he got mad at me for not making her feel welcomed. I felt bad because she makes my dad really happy, so I tried being more friendly with her. In front of my dad, she was nice to me, but when we were alone, she ignored me or spoke to me with attitude. She even told me that I was a brat and I make my dad's life harder. I told him, but he didn't believe me and yelled at me for trying to sabotage his relationship. He said that I wanted him to die alone and be sad that I was selfish. I was so shocked because none of it is true. My dad basically treated me like I wasn't there at all after that. I felt like I did when my mom died, all alone. I stayed up really late one night because I just couldn't sleep and I wanted to sneak in a midnight snack. The girlfriend was in the kitchen on FaceTime, so I decided to be nosy and listened. She was talking about my dad and how much she loves him. Then she said that he had this, quote, dumb daughter, and she wondered if it was too late for adoption. Her and her friend laughed at that. She said that I was a little bee and she hated me. Her friend then said something about boarding school or military school, but I left, so I didn't hear the rest. I was so exhausted from all the crying I did, so I actually slept. I didn't tell my dad, and I don't even know if I should since he probably won't believe me. I really miss my mom. I kind of just want to go live with my grandparents, my mom's parents, but I don't want my dad to think that I'm leaving leaving him. What do I do? Can I even do anything? How do I get my dad to listen to me? Would I be wrong for leaving? Jumping into the future, there is an update. Since my last post, I spoke to my grandparents and told them everything. I asked if I could stay with them if I wanted to, and they agreed. I then spoke to my dad again and tried to tell him how I felt and what I had heard. I didn't want to film or record because I knew that he would be mad at that and wouldn't listen. He didn't believe me again and thought that I was jealous of having to share him with someone else. I got upset and I told him that I was leaving so he could live happily ever after without the burden of having me around. He looked shocked but didn't say anything. I had already packed my bags and had brought some things to my grandparents' house. My dad didn't speak to me for the rest of the day. My grandfather picked me up and I've been there since. I haven't gone home and I haven't heard from my dad. My grandparents told me that they would handle my dad and that I shouldn't have to be the one doing it. I'm upset that my dad hasn't called or texted me once to see if I'm okay. At the same time, I'm feeling so much better being with my grandparents. My grandmother is probably the sweetest person ever, and my grandfather is a little rough around the edges, but he's really a softie. Jumping into the future again, there's a final update. My dad came to visit me in my grandparents' place to talk to me. He brought his girlfriend with him. He said, "My girlfriend and I have been talking and we decided that it's best if you stay here." My dad said that I can come clean out my room completely and he'll help. He also said that after I get my things, we should also take a break from each other and reevaluate things in a few months or however long this takes. His girlfriend then said something about how she'll take care of my dad for me. In a few days, I'll be going over with my grandparents to get my stuff. We'll also be getting the important papers that some of you have mentioned. It doesn't look like I'll be going home anytime soon. I have a new home now, I guess. To be honest, I have been feeling pretty bad about some of the comments, specifically the ones saying that since I probably remind him of my mom, that's why he's like that with me. He got rid of everything of my mom's, and I was the last piece of my mom, so it makes sense that he doesn't want me anymore. I really wish that he was still here. I think he wants to start over and that I wasn't a part of that plan, so I guess that's it. Am I the jerk? I honestly did not expect that outcome. I thought somehow the dad would come to his senses and realize that he was neglecting the OP, his daughter, and try and have a human connection with her, but instead he just says, "Okay, you stay here now, pack up your stuff, let's not talk about anything, let's not address what my girlfriend said on the phone about getting rid of you, you can just be gone now." Most of the time when people say statements like, "He doesn't want me anymore," it's usually some sort of exaggeration or they're being dramatic about it, but honestly that is kind of the sentiment that the dad is conveying by his actions. He would probably never describe it like that or even see it like that himself, but what else would you call this? Dealing with grief is a very complex thing, and a lot of times there is collateral damage to the people that you love the most, and the dad might not realize that he made the OP the collateral damage in this case in this exact moment, but in the future he'll probably look back and realize that and maybe be regretful. And from the OP's perspective, she may look back in the past and be resentful. In both scenarios, if this isn't sorted out, it's something both of them are going to look back on and not remember fondly. But realistically, the only one that can change this, the only one that has the power to do so, is the dad, despite being burdened with what sounds like immense grief. So if you were the OP in this situation, how do you think you would handle all of this? Let me know down below in jerk or not a jerk and why. This is why you never threaten someone permanently stuck in survival mode. Years ago, I was living with a couple of friends and lost both my job and my place to live within the same 24 hours when the economy went down the toilet, and the bank foreclosed on the owner who owned the house that we were staying in. We had about 2 weeks to get out, and then I ended up homeless and living in my car for 2 years. That's another story entirely. The point, however, is when living in a large city in a vehicle, your survival mode kicks in constantly. You're always worried, you're always cautious, and in the event something happens that's a threat, you usually think of the most effective, brutal, and quickest way to remove it as a threat. As a result, even years later now that I'm stable, I don't really have the ability to gauge an appropriate response to a threat. Maybe that's why I went overboard here, but I'll share this story and let others be amused or pass judgment as the case may be. While I was living in my car, I developed a relationship with someone who was a bit more stable than I was. She didn't really care that I lived in a car, as I was always presentable and was able to hold down temporary work. Nobody really knew that I lived in a car unless I shared that information with them. She was big on helping people and was genuinely a good person, as I thought at the time. We had a falling out and just gradually lost contact. Our relationship was more of a passion thing. We remained friends on Facebook and she was fairly popular on there with about 500 friends. This is important later. About a year after the two of us broke up and about 6 months after I had last spoken to her outside of a few casual comments and likes, I was doing much better. I had just started a new job that I was about to go through training for, and afterwards would be out of the car and into a more permanent residence. I had done a lot of work towards that point and things were great. I was at a Kinko's using their internet on my laptop and my phone rang. It was her. After a very brief exchange of pleasantries, she gets to the point. Her current boyfriend got her pregnant and left her. She needed somebody to take her to the abortion clinic, and since she was the poster child perfect girl to her circle of friends and family, she couldn't ask any of them to do it. So she was asking me. On one hand, I was perturbed that this was the first time we had spoken in a long time and this was the only subject she felt was important enough to call me on. On the other hand, I try to be a good guy, and even though it backfires, I was raised that way. But in this situation, I really couldn't help her because I was supposed to drop my car off at a friend's house the next day and hop on a bus to another state for my orientation at my new job. Even if I wanted to, which I really didn't, I couldn't. I told her as much, and then that's when it hit the fan. She started screaming at me on the phone, acting hysterical, crying, telling me that I was a horrible person. I had to help her. I didn't care about her, etc. By this point, the other people in the computer area are hearing her scream at me over my phone, and I'm getting quite a few stares. I tell her in a tense voice that I had to get off the phone and for her to send me a message. Some of you may be getting ahead of me here and see where this is going and think in advance that I am the jerk, but please reserve judgment. I promise it's worth it. My Facebook chat window starts lighting up with more insults. I realize this may bite me in the butt. Remember how I don't respond well to things I see as threatening and start to steer the conversation asking her details, and she gets dragged along. I confirm in the chat that she was pregnant. I confirm in the chat that he ran out on her. I asked why he ran out on her as I thought the two of them were close, and she tells me that there was a chance that it wasn't his. I tell her that once again, I can't help her as I need to catch a bus tomorrow morning. Up to this point, I'm willing to wish her luck and let it go. I start a new life tomorrow. She then drops this bombshell on me. She says, if you don't help me with this, I am going to tell everyone that it's yours and that you raped me. Oh hell no. She did not just say that. And then I realized she said it over Facebook chat. Instead of warning her, instead of telling her to piss off, I instead start thinking about what a false rape accusation would do to me on the eve of everything that's about to change from my life. I have one thought, born out of survival mode that got kicked into high gear. Destroy this bee, and I know how to do it. I ask her if she's serious when she knows there's no way this kid is mine. She says she doesn't care. I ask her who she thinks is going to believe her. She says it's my word against hers, and who are people going to believe? Her or some homeless jerk who lives in his car? Knowing I have enough ammo, I pretend to reluctantly relent. I tell her, dang it, fine. I'll help you, but I can't take you to the clinic tomorrow. It will have to be later this week. I have to change my plans. Let me call you tomorrow. She agrees. I then get to work. Within a few minutes, that chat transcript has been sent to about 100 people on her friends list, and I tagged all of our mutual friends. The chat was also linked on her church page and her employer's page. I also sent it to her parents for good measure as an afterthought. Almost instantly, my phone starts to blow up. I shut off my laptop, shut off my phone, and went out to my car to spend my last night in it. There's not much that I can say about the fallout that will do it justice more than what's probably playing in your heads. Sides were chosen, legal threats were made, firings happened, death threats were thrown around. Needless to say, her reputation was completely ruined to the point that she not only had to delete all forms of social media, but she had to move clear across the country to get rid of the stigma from the small town that she grew up in. Over the top? Maybe, but it was so sweet. It warms my heart on cold winter nights. Am I the jerk? It is horrifying how in some of these situations, bringing up false accusations is just an easy go-to. I think a lot of people in these stories that reach for those false accusations don't really understand the devastation that can lay to somebody's life. The original poster here was just trying to catch a break. He was living in his car for so long and he just wanted to have something work out, and then she threatens the one thing that will probably destroy all of that. How can she really expect a kind outcome when you're playing with fire like that? I would not be surprised if she thinks that his reaction was worse than her false accusations, and that is just delusional. And then as she's doing it, she tries to look down on him by saying who would believe a homeless jerk, just to put him down one last time when this guy's already been through enough. It always rubs me the wrong way when people think of homeless people as lesser than human or just lesser than in general. There's almost always a lot more to the story than you can ever realize just by seeing somebody in the current position they're in. But she uses that as some sort of secret weapon so that he has to comply to her, or at least she thinks he does. So I hope this guy was able to get on his feet, and I hope this woman never does this to anybody else again. But how would you handle this situation if you were the OP? Let me know down below and jerk or not a jerk and why. My husband just admitted to me that he has been cheating on me with his cousin for the majority of our marriage. I'm a 40-year-old woman and my husband is 39. My husband's cousin was recently killed in a car accident 3 weeks ago. This has made my husband visibly depressed and a lot less like himself lately. Tonight, when I got home from work, he had our 2 kids go spend the night at his mother's place and had made us dinner. After dinner, he sat me down and told me that I needed to prepare myself for what he was going to say. He then proceeded to tell me about his affair. To sum things up, he essentially had been doing bedroom things with his cousin since she seduced him when she was 13 and he was 16. These carnal activities went on through their adulthood up until he started to date me. After we got married, things didn't happen between him or his cousin until around 4 years into our marriage, when she supposedly convinced him to continue their activities on the side. For context, we've been married for a little over 15 years. This has continued up until 3 weeks ago, as you can imagine. He told me to take it as I will and he'll accept anything I choose to do considering our marriage. His cousin apparently was a lot more than some fling. I never would have expected my husband to be cheating. He never did anything that would give it red flags, like coming in late or leaving a hair of another woman around. I'm at a standstill and I'm not sure where to go from here. I haven't been able to say anything to him after he was so blunt about it. I'm still crying some now. I don't know where to go from here. Any suggestions are welcome. Jumping into the future, there is one update. I have thought a lot on the suggestions that I've been given and decided to go forward on some. I've talked with my mother about the situation and she's agreed to take in my children until the situation is dealt with. I've also approached my husband about divorce and put my demands about wanting full custody of our children, as well as the house and other things. He hasn't put up a fight regarding any of those and has agreed to it. It's been really hard to swallow all of this, and I'm looking for a lawyer now to help with the divorce. My mother has also suggested to keep the real reasoning of our divorce away from our children as long as possible, especially my eldest daughter who's 14. This will be my second and last post on this matter. I again want to express that I appreciate all the helpful comments and suggestions. What should I do from here? So for 9 years, the husband was habitually cheating on his wife with his cousin. That is a long time to be cheating on someone and not have it uncovered. I feel like in almost every cheating situation, no matter how slick you try to be, eventually it bubbles to the surface, and sometimes you are the one that bubbles it to the surface, like in this case. And I can't even imagine how devastating that is for the wife, the OP here, because she has spent a good portion of her life with this man, only to find out that he has betrayed her for years and years, almost a decade. And that goes for whether it was the cousin or not. The main reason why the cousin part is so shocking, besides it literally being his cousin, is that she never would have seen it coming. It was family. So it's even more shocking than it would be in a normal situation, and she's only that much more blindsided. Where do you go from here? How do you rebuild? Not financially, but emotionally. Those are going to be some tough questions she has to answer very soon. But let me know what your thoughts are on this, and what would you recommend? Am I the jerk for not wanting my fiance to dance to a love song dedicated to her late fiance at our wedding? Before we met, my fiance Kayla was engaged to a man that she had dated for 3 years who died in a traffic accident. I had never dated a woman who had that kind of loss before, so I've always been learning as I go, but I've tried to respect that he will always be a part of her story, and I accepted her relationship with her late fiance's parents with open arms. They stayed very close, and by the time we started dating, they were basically like a second set of parents to her. Kayla's parents, her real parents, and her late fiance's parents are all amazing people, so I consider myself pretty lucky to have 2 great sets of in-laws. Our wedding is coming up in May, and Kayla told me that after her father-daughter dance, she would like to have a second dance with her late fiance's father to the song Vanilla Twilight. She asked me if I was comfortable with that, and I didn't want to be that guy and say no, so I said yes. But it really makes me uncomfortable that she would be dancing to a love song dedicated to another man at our wedding. I am happy to make space in our lives for his memory. A photo of him is on our mantle at home. We make it a point to commemorate his birthday and the anniversary of his death, and I feel like I am being understanding and supportive when she has bad days. And I am 100% fine with having his parents at the wedding because, like I said, we are all a family. But I also feel like our wedding is one day that it is all about our relationship. Am I the jerk if I ask her to reconsider this dance? What are the best compromises here? Jumping into the future, there is an update. 2 months ago, I married the love of my life. I was thinking about this thread the other day and how it went and where my head was at when I made it. I thought you guys might like an update. A little anticlimactically, the thing that I was stressing about was a bit of a miscommunication, which probably happens a lot. Kayla wanted to dance with her late fiance's, I'll go ahead and just call him Luke from now on, father at our wedding. And Vanilla Twilight was an example of a song along the lines of what she wanted, not the set in stone top choice like I had thought. I, and a lot of other commenters in the original thread, spent a lot of time over analyzing the lyrics to that song, looking for a hidden meaning in every word. While it turns out she hadn't put that much thought into it, other than this is kind of a sad song that I like. We got together that night and she had made several playlists of possible first dance songs for us. Songs for when she walks down the aisle, music to play at the reception, and the song choices for her dance with Luke's father. We spent hours listening to all of them and talking about the wedding. We even made a tournament style bracket for our first dance song in her journal and put songs head to head against each other until the victory emerged. At the end, we talked about the wedding and our relationship, Luke and their relationship, and grief. What it was like when she lost him and what it was like for me when I lost my mom at a young age. What a family is and all the things we were hopeful for the future. We stayed up until 3 in the morning just talking and planning and laughing and crying a little, and I'm so glad for it. After getting bombarded by dozens of different opinions from dozens of different people earlier that day, I had been worried that I was going to have a conflict with my fiance shortly after our wedding, but there was no conflict, just a pure memory. After that night, I started putting in more effort to be involved with the wedding planning process and actually asked for things that I wanted, which Kayla actually really appreciated. We also took a long weekend a couple of weeks before the wedding to go on a camping trip together just for the two of us, which I highly recommend to anyone who is getting married. Overall, there was a complete flip in my feelings leading up to the wedding, from being somewhat insecure and excited but nervous to being completely at ease, excited, and feeling stronger about my relationship than ever. The wedding day itself was really wonderful and worth the wait. Kayla and Luke's father had their dance to Lean on Me, and I also had a dance with Kayla's mom, and it was very emotional in a good way. I really felt that that day was a celebration of our love, and I was genuinely happy that Luke's parents were there to celebrate along with us because they are very much members of our family, and I wish I had the space to describe all the ways they've been there for us through the years. My amazing wife is who she is because of all the experiences that she's had in her life, and I don't want to be the kind of man who asks her to pretend that she has never loved before me or pretend that her grief is something that is or should be done with forever now that she has me. I just want to say how glad I am that we shared that night together and that the wedding was nothing but love and celebration. I never thought that I could be so happy. So what would you do? From the first post of the update, the OP basically did an about face. He completely just turned around and changed his perspective. It doesn't really even sound like he brought it up to her. Yeah, they obviously talked about everything until 3 in the morning, but it doesn't sound like he explicitly stated what the issue was. And maybe that was because whatever they talked about in those conversations until 3 a.m. was enough to put him at ease without having to confront her or get in some sort of conflict situation. Either way, it sounds like it all worked out for the both of them. But if this was you in this situation, would you be okay with your husband or wife dancing a song dedicated to their late partner? Let me know down below. My meeting with my CEO has crushed me. I don't know where to write this and I do not know what I'm looking for. I basically just have to write this down somewhere to process it. I work for a company in Germany. I am new to this company, 4 months here and also alone in my whole department. I am building it up. Last month we acquired a new company, a French company, so we have a culture difference here. I was told that I will also need to work for that company. I do speak French, not perfect, but well enough to talk and joke around. The French CEO was visiting our office this week and today he requested a meeting with me. The meeting was horrible. Basically, it was just him taking our work culture and me apart, all while smiling at me the whole time. We have home office, which is unreliable. We have flexible work hours, which makes no sense. I have no rules, no key performance indicators, which is chaotic. However, at our company, everything runs smoothly, and honestly, I am successful at my job. He talked to me the whole time as if I am 12 years old. I am 32 years old. And then at the end, he asked me if I even have any experience whatsoever. I have 4 years experience. And the last thing he says while smiling is, "This meeting has shown me that I clearly need to speak to your CEO." It honestly felt so condescending. I'm a very fragile person. I doubt myself a lot. I am my own worst critic. This has crushed me. I can't switch off his voice in my head. I feel worthless. Why did he smile the whole time? Why did he treat me like a child? Why do I let it make me go crazy when I normally get good feedback? I should be able to trust myself in my performance, no? Also, the whole meeting was in French. I do understand almost everything, but why not speak in a language that is foreign to both of us, English, instead of making only me uncomfortable? He used difficult expressions and asked me, "Do you understand hand several times. During our first meeting ever, I had asked several times if we could switch to English, and he just said, "But you know French. This way you will learn." So I felt too shy to ask again. But to me, this is such an odd way of thinking. It felt like his way of gaining more power. Jumping into the future, there is an update. The conversation with the French CEO had really crushed me. I was crying a lot. Then 2 months after, I was in a meeting and I reacted apparently weird to a specific task that I was given related to the French company. Immediately, our CTO came to me after the meeting and asked me why I reacted the way I did. I basically just said, should I confirm that with the French CEO before doing that? Anyway, the CTO ended up pressuring me into telling him what happened. I had one tear rolling down my face because of the pressure. He was shocked and asked me, in an ideal world, what I wanted to make this better. I just asked, I personally don't want to work directly with him. The CTO said, done. 2 weeks later, I was told that the French CEO had his decision-making power over my department taken away. He is no longer involved. Fast forward to last month, my company's CEO came to me at the end of the workday. It was only him and me. He told me that he heard about how the French CEO had treated me back in February. He hugged me and said that no one is allowed to treat me this way. Then he said that they have decided to find an agreement to part ways with the French CEO. They are still in discussions, but wanted to tell me already because of what happened. He confirmed I do a wonderful job, exceeded expectations, and if ever someone talks to me the way that guy did, to go to him directly to have this sorted out. As you can imagine, I am super happy at my current company. So, what would you have done? This honestly just sounds like some sort of power trip that the French CEO was on. Maybe he thought that he could just come in, lay down the law, and everyone would have to respect him. Kind of like a tactic people use when they enter prison. Find whoever they think will be a threat in the future and preemptively go after them. There's no mention of whether or not the CEO did this to other people, but I'm assuming that's not the case, or we probably would have heard about that. But let me know how you would handle this if the new CEO of your company started treating you this way. Am I the jerk for kicking a server out of my wedding? I'm a 25-year-old female and my husband is 30 years old. We got married last Friday. We planned our dream wedding down to our dream catering company. The wedding was beautiful. After the pictures, we headed down to our cocktail hour, and that's when I saw her. My guests were all told to wear dark colors, so my husband and I stood out. I also asked my guests to wear minimal makeup. I had assumed that applied to the staff too. The server, a 19-ish-year-old female, had on clearly too much eyeliner. She also had diamond studs in her ears, a flashy ring, and one of those ugly nose studs. The staff's uniform was a black long-sleeve shirt, but on her, it was too low cut and her pants were far too tight. It was super distracting. She was walking around serving drinks and talking to my guests. I asked another member of the staff to speak to their boss. When their boss came out, I pointed out the server and asked that she be dealt with because she was super distracting. Their boss apologized and called the server back into the kitchen. Not even an hour later, the server was back out serving food for dinner. I called the boss over again and asked if the server could work in the back or go home. Her boss said that they were short-staffed tonight, so she would see what could be done. After a couple of hours of not seeing her, I saw the server again behind the bar. I called the boss out one last time and told her if the server didn't leave, I would be calling the cops. The boss finally relented and told the girl to go home. My husband and mother-in-law said that I was acting crazy and that I probably got a poor college kid fired over nothing. My mother and maid of honor said that it's my wedding so I can do as I please. It's my wedding and I don't want somebody overshining me, and the server should know she's at work and not dress up so much. I do feel kind of bad because she was pretty young. Am I the jerk? Imagine spending the limited time and energy caring about whether or not somebody is wearing makeup on your wedding day. This does not sound like somebody I would want to be married to. Sometimes people are just neurotic and they can't help it. So at first I was giving the OP the benefit of the doubt that maybe that's just how they were. But then she threatens to call the police and says that this server is outshining her. At that point, she's actively making decisions to be like that and wasting time on her one and only wedding day to try and get this girl fired or removed instead of enjoying that precious time with her friends and family. So what do you think? Jerk or not a jerk, and why?
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.